lifestyle. Sports cards and we live now. Jeremy Lee in the building and every guest that you ever needed. Sports cards after hours keep the hobby heated. Updates, hobby talk like you never seen it. Sports cards live and none could ever beat it. Sports cards is a lifestyle. Sports cards and we live now. Welcome to another episode of Sports Cards Live with your host, Jeremy Lee.
What is up, everybody, and welcome to episode number 275 of Sports Cards Live. It is Saturday, July the 12th, 2025. My name is Jeremy Lee, everybody. Tomorrow night, Fanatics Collect, weekly auction-ending watch party here on the channel. And several, if not most, of the auction watch party showcases, shows that we do here on Sports Cards Live are available on their very new tidy little podcast called Sports Cards Live Auction Nights on Apple and Spotify. Subscribe for free. And I do appreciate everyone who kind of requested that those did come back. If you are looking for a grail to add to your collection, make sure you check out Fund Your Cards, the hobby's leading consolidator. They will help you finance the purchase of your grail with your own cards. Visit fundyourcards.com, and there you will find their proprietary client platform that cements them as the leaders in the space. And check out GP Sports Cards for a wide variety of hockey breaks located right here on YouTube, streaming every Wednesday and Friday night. All products and breaks can be found on their website, gpsportscards.com. And if you are looking for a gem mint in sports statistics, Rolling Insights delivers high-quality data for businesses who trust their data feeds to power their platforms with real-time statistics, box scores, and player and team performance data. Fantasy players rely on SportsWise for instant access to performance data. Ditch those messy spreadsheets. Turn raw stats into a real advantage. Visit rolling-insights.com. Number 275, number jersey lore. I see that. New flexible pricing, guys, from Chronosio to match your needs. They've heard your feedback loud and clear. You want to pay only for what you truly need. That's why they've implemented a new pricing slider offering more granular control over your subscription. If previously available options didn't match your requirements, now is the perfect time to revisit Chronosio. Plus, choose their annual plan, and you'll get 2 months free when you pay for 10. You will get 12. Elevate your collection and inventory management. Get started at home.chronosio.com. And guys, this show is available on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a rating or review on your favorite platform. Greatly appreciate that. And thank you, as always, to our loyal viewers and listeners for your ongoing support. If you have not yet subscribed to the channel or the podcast, please take a moment and do so. As always, your comments and your questions are in play. Let's get to it. And we are going to bring out, by the way, Joe Perreault is off gallivanting this weekend. Unfortunately, he's not with us, but fortunately, we have filling in. Let's bring him out. Josh Adams, Midwest Vintage, will be joining us for the evening. Josh, how are you, buddy?
I'm good. Thank you, Jeremy, for getting the call from the bullpen. Always happy to be a spot starter to relieve Joe so he can go have fun doing whatever he's doing.
It's good to have you back, Josh. Always enjoy hanging out with you guys. I also want to mention Road to the National Series. 7 episodes are up on the YouTube channel, and I just arranged an 8th. We're doing one more episode of the Road to the National. Going to be recording that, I think, on Wednesday next week, and should have that released later that day by Friday, the latest. And that is going to be with the Nationals management team themselves are going to be joining me here on the channel for that. I want to thank Tony, Southern Collector Tony. We had a great discussion the other day, and he's going to be dropping that episode on the Southern Collector YouTube channel coming up on Tuesday, I think he mentioned. So I see Tony out there in the chat. Thank you, Tony. I enjoyed our time, and I look forward to maybe watching it back myself. We will see. But we had a great chat for about an hour. And I want to also shout out Hobby Palooza is next week on the For Collectors YouTube channel, Friday through Sunday. 3 days of a ton of content will be streaming. Josh, maybe you'll join us on ours.
Yeah, I would love to. Sounds fun. We
have the Saturday night slot as usual here at 10 o'clock Eastern. And also, guys, if you're at the National, the Vintage Trade Night is on the Saturday night. It'll be in the convention center where the National itself is, hosted as well by 4 Collectors. Check out that YouTube channel if you have not yet. Yeah, so lots going on. Josh. What's on your mind? How is things going with you?
Good. It's always busy the 2 weeks before the National. It's like our Christmas for adult males who like to collect cards and females too. But no, it's I'm always very excited this time of year. The National is always great, and it's just one of my favorite weeks of the year.
It's always a good time. Yeah. The actual road to the National, pun not intended, is always so much fun as we get all geared up. I know everyone's talking about it and enjoying just thinking about it and getting ready and prepared and what are we going to pick up and who we're going to see and what are we going to do. But let's say hello to Laura is here. What's up, Laura? Good to see you. The Pursuit. Good evening to you. There's Tony, Southern Collector. We got Stukes with us. We got Jacob Dahl. We've got Foul Ball. We've got Ross Loves Cards. Good evening, Ross. Larry Gitlin, good evening to you. Who else? Oh, lots of people. Thank you, The Pursuit. 275. It's 275 of Sports Cards Live, but we're over 800 shows here on the channel now in the 5 years. But this is the flagship, so it is definitely exciting. Thank you. Pick Six. What is happening? Lonely Basement Baseball Cards is here. Hodges is here. Thanks for giving the video a like. Peacemaker Cards, welcome to the show. Ross Loves Cards. We got Dan's Vintage in the house. What's up, Dan? Good to see you. Jacob Dahl trying to find some Philadelphia football cards from 64 to 67. Linda's First is here with us. Good evening, Linda's First. Evan Parker from Mantel will be joining us a little bit later tonight here on the show. Good to see you in the chat, Evan. It's always good to see the later guests, Josh. Now, maybe seeing, and then they can kind of talk a bit about what they've seen so far in the episode. Have a bit of continuity, right?
I think that is a good idea because when I came on last time, I wasn't watching for the 2 hours before, so I thought I had to catch up. So,
well, now you know.
Evan's smarter than me, right?
Mike Double V, what's going on? Kevin Hawthorne, we've got Jack says, I chuckled at this. Says this is my favorite part of the show. Love the sponsor reads. Thanks for getting through that. I appreciate you guys always doing that. Mark Santucci, what is happening? Denpor, we got Dennis here. HB is here. Jacob Dahl and Yankees fan. Iconic Al is here. What's up, Al? We'll see you at the National. I hope. Turpin Forcer, good to see you. We've got Mookie Chilson in the house. What's up, Mookie? We got John 3, the 80s kid. Yes, Southern Collector. Tony, he's dropping the video. The episode did a collector sort of profile with me. So thanks again for doing that, Tony. It'll be fun. Piccolina the Cat. Jeff McMahon, everyone's here tonight, guys. Not much else going on, I guess, tonight. Raise LeBron James cards. What is happening? What is happening? Mark Santucci says, none of us think there might be collectors who are having troubles making money like me. None of us stink. I don't know what you're getting at, Mark, but I hope everything is okay with you. We got Alex, Army ATC 22 in the house. Hobby Champs, Colin Murray. Hey, yeah, oh my God, Card Farmer. Lantern is here. What's up, Turner? A Yates here for Josh and the stickers. Ziggy Noah's here. Double D, Vintage, Triple V. Holy moly, you guys. Peeps is here. The Professor. I'm finally getting to the bottom. And Defend Pro Canada. Chris, I'm here for the whole night. Good stuff. Okay. All right, guys. Stop saying hi. I can't handle it anymore. It's too exciting. So we've got Gordy Bonker joining us shortly here in about 5 minutes, Josh. I've known Gordy for feel like I've known him for years. If you guys don't know him, Bonkers Cards here on Instagram. He's got a big TikTok account too. He was recently a guest on the Sports Cards Nonsense podcast as well, which I listened to. And I'll tell you, guys are going to be impressed with him. He just seems to, loves the hobby. Oh yeah, Card Farmer says, Gordy sent me. Good. I'm glad Gordy sent you. Thank you to Gordy for doing that, peeps. Everyone is here. So, one thing I want to mention, Josh, before we get going is I did put a post out on Instagram the other day. I've been putting more posts out on Instagram and Twitter, and they've been getting a ton of engagement and a ton of controversy, if you will. But the one I put out recently that I know Evan wanted to chat about from Mantel, so we'll do that about a bit when he comes on. But I had said, I'll just read it. I'll put it on the screen quickly. Here's what it says. It said, some of you need to hear this today. If the hobby feels like it sucks, maybe it's not the hobby. Maybe it's how you're doing it. Find your lane, your people, your purpose, collect with intention, connect with collectors you respect. Do that, and the hobby won't suck. And tons of comments. I don't know how many, lots of comments came through. And lot of back and forth discussion on it. So we'll maybe talk a bit about that a little bit later. But Josh, did you happen to check out that thread, that post with all the comments, and any thoughts?
I did. I saw it when you posted it, and I was keeping up with the comments because there were some pretty, I thought, insightful and relevant things people had to say. Like, I think someone said, comparison's the thief of joy, which I like, because do what you like for yourself, and it's your hobby, it's your cards, and if do what makes you happy. It's supposed to be fun. If it's not fun, then then either find something else or change it up.
Yeah, there were a couple of times where I went back and forth with a couple of guys, gals, I'm not even sure. And, they were, a few people just aren't enjoying the hobby. And I think a lot of it has to do with maybe the price of wax, maybe the amount of money people might be losing or wasting or not getting cards they want for their money back. And my response is really just like, then you're doing it wrong. And I know it says it right. Maybe it's how you're doing it, but maybe you should find a different way. Now, the rebuttal to that is, yeah, but I love opening packs, or yeah, but I love the modern class of rookies and the players playing right now. And I mean, I get it. But if you're not enjoying it, why are you still doing it? Or why be a glutton for punishment? So my advice is try and find something that works for you. Try and find a different way to enjoy the hobby. I think a lot of people spent a lot of time cracking wax back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And then people, I like to say, well, go buy singles, buy the cards you want. And then people will say to that, well, yeah, but everyone's shilling everything on eBay, so you can't do that either. Well, then I say, I understand shilling exists on eBay. Like, we all know that. And it's been part of the landscape of the hobby for so long. So I've just decided in my own head, listen, I know I've been shilled when I bought cards before.
For sure.
But I set the price I want to pay. And if there was a shiller in there, I mean, like, listen, I'm not encouraging it. I don't like it. I would prefer they weren't there, but I'm not going to sit there and just let them decide if I'm going to enjoy the hobby or not, So
agreed.
Lots there to talk about. Let's go to some more comments because there's some reactions to that. And then we'll bring Gordy on in just a couple of minutes. Greg Aday from Waxahachie, Texas. What's going on, Greg? And sending our best to everybody in Texas with all the devastation going on there with the floods. Foulball's working on framing a new addition on the house while listening. Very good, Jeremy. A collector's dream, Orlando. Orlando is the ambassador for Hobby Palooza next weekend, everybody. So congratulations to him and thank you to him. He's such a great guy. We've got Triple V says Gary Aday just drove through wax. Oh, very nice. Orlando says if it's not fun, it's not a hobby. Yeah. Right. Lukey says, I always say comparison is the thief of joy. Henderson is the thief of faces. Tony says, don't ask what the hobby can do for you, but what can you do for the hobby? That's a good one right there. Ziggy says, if you are not enjoying the hobby, try changing the hobby role. Loved Chris Sewell video on the roles in the hobby. I haven't watched that one, but I will. Iconic Gal says, curate your collection and your content. Yes, totally agree. That's what I do right there. Linda's first says, I've been in and out of the hobby since like 1992, mostly in, and I never once thought it sucks. The hobby is this abstract thing in our heads. If you aren't enjoying it, stop and do something you like. Yeah. Right. I mean, I wasn't trying to say people will get out of the hobby, but if you're literally just going to not try to find a way to enjoy it, then then don't do it anymore. No. Really. I mean, it's not that difficult. Ziggy says becoming a breaker is one of the most popular jobs. You get to open cards and talk cards and others with a hobby. The sorting sucks, but it's fun. And lots do just that. Yeah, lots of people break. I don't think I could do it, but I know people love doing it. Triple V says, connect with collectors you respect. Ace comments. Yeah, thanks, Triple V. Sure. That was a big one when I kind of thought about it. I'm like, yeah, that resonates. And I think that's a good bit of advice to give. Chris C says, I love vintage and 90s, so I have multiple eras I enjoy. That's wonderful. Love that. Hello to Chris C. Eric Young, what's going on? And Hobby Champ says, if you find the hobby too expensive, buy cheaper stuff. It's really that simple, which comes back to that comment I was making a couple of years ago, which was not everybody gets to drive a Ferrari, guys.
Yeah.
What are you just going to complain about it all day long that you can't drive a Ferrari? No, you you drive a car you can afford, right, Josh?
You can find, there's cool stuff in this hobby at every price point. I hate saying price point, but yeah, I mean, there's cool stuff at every level, and stuff brings nostalgia, or stuff that you remember as a kid, or stuff that is cool, and you can always collect. If you got the collector bug in you, you're going to find a way to feed it.
Yeah, exactly. Ziggy here says, where to go? Right here. I think if it is expensive, you'll find more ways to make money to fund your hobby.
That's right.
Well, if you want to. Kinger, good evening to you, Kinger. He says, if everyone collected the same way, the hobby would be boring. That's the beauty.
I agree.
I don't think any two people collect the exact same way.
No.
Chris C, I love the hobby, just not the hijinks.
Right. Perfect statement.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's bring out Gordy. Gordy, I see the two thumbs. Are you ready? Were those for me, Gordy? Yeah, you're good to go. All right. We'll bring Gordy on right now. Here we go. Everybody, please welcome Gordy Bonker to Sports Cards Live for the first time. Gordy, how are you?
What's up, Jeremy? I'm doing great. Hi, Josh. Nice to meet you as well.
Hey, Gordy. Nice to meet you.
Man, I'm stoked to be here, Jeremy. Thank you so much for having me, man.
Oh, you bet, Gordy. Listen, I remember you and we jumped on a phone call. It's got to be 2.5 years ago, I feel. It's quite some time. And I don't remember exactly what we talked about, but I think you were looking for a bit of like advice on content or that sort of thing. And I'm flattered that you would have come to me, but maybe you can just sort of share your recollection of that and where you were at back 2.5 years ago, even.
Yeah, man, absolutely. We were speaking on the phone, and I remember driving out to Penn State. I'm a Penn State alum, and we had spoken, and it was just right when I had started to do partnership with REA, who's a great partner of mine, and talk to you about advice and just starting to partner and be a name and a brand in the hobby. And I'll say this now, I've said this to you a couple of times, Jeremy. I remember that moment. It was one of those first wow moments for me, in that I was getting to have a conversation with somebody like yourself in the industry. When I started learning about the hobby several years ago, this show, Sports Cards Live, was the first piece of content that I watched, and it's how I educated myself to learn about the industry at large. I always really gravitated towards your conversational style. I like the way you share information. I liked a lot of what your guests had to share, and I learned a lot through this show. So to get to be a guest on your show now means a lot to me, and I want to sincerely thank you because it's a really cool moment for me. So thank you for having me. And yeah, I remember that conversation well, and I've taken a lot of what I learned from you and applied it into my own content brand. And thank you for all you've done for the hobby, man. It's pretty cool to see your growth in the last few years as well.
Man, that's just so flattering, but it's also satisfying, to know that that whatever you learned here watching this show, not just me, of course, but all the guests that have come through here listening, I'm glad that it was helpful, and there's nothing like being able to inspire, and so that's awesome. I'm sure you're doing that for others now yourself. I mean, you've really grown what you're doing. I'm seeing some people in the chat. Orlando says Gordy does vintage breaks, and Ziggy says he's a breaker. I love him already. Now, you have a different approach to breaks. You do a lot of set breaks, right? You'll pick up a set. Right now you're doing a 1951 Bowman set break. So, but before you get into that, why don't you just explain, let the people who don't know you, first of all, where are you? What do you collect yourself, and what are you doing in the hobby?
I appreciate
both content and in terms of your set breaks and that.
Well, physically located in northern New Jersey. I spend my time in the hobby primarily in vintage sports card content. So I'm a huge fan of baseball and baseball history. I have been since I was a little kid. And I collect primarily 1954 tops, is what you'll see behind me. I love to collect that set in higher SGC grades. I'm an SGC over PSA guy. I don't know if that'll ruffle some feathers, but I've always preferred that. And I collect a lot of signed Hank Aaron cards, as well as some Babe Ruth, Jackie Robinson stuff. But I just love the history of baseball. I think baseball history and American history are really synonymous with one another. And I love it. I collect primarily stuff in the 50s. But, in terms of, would you want me to give my background in terms of where I'm at in the hobby currently? Is that what you were asking?
Yeah, go for let people get to know you a little bit for
Cool.
sure.
Yeah. So, I'm the founder and owner of Bonkers Cards, which is basically an online media channel for vintage sports card content. I started doing content, like I said, probably about three or so years ago when me and you first connected, maybe a little longer now. It was while I was working my full-time job. I graduated from Penn State 2018, came out of the business school there and was in a couple of like pretty traditional large corporate sales roles, large consumer product companies. And then in 2022-ish, I started doing a lot of more finance content. I was a headhunter in New York City. It was my last role before I went full-time in my business. I was a recruiter in the financial services space, primarily in the private equity, hedge fund, investment banking space. And I was doing a lot of content related to the job market, the stock market, and the economy. And I was doing it on TikTok. And I had come across some information. I forget exactly what it was, whether it was a news story or something like that, about the sports cards industry and how much transaction volume was happening in it and the valuations of some of these cards. And I was like, wait a minute, excuse me? Like, people are spending what kind of money on sports cards? And I was a big collector as a little kid, but as an adult, I hadn't been into it yet. So I called up a buddy of mine who I used to trade cards with when we were little kids. I was like, I know you still do this. Like, can you bring me to a show? He brings me to a card show, and I was fascinated by it. I bought a 1954 Willie Mays, and that's what kicked off this whole thing. And I actually still have that exact 54 Willie. It was the first card I bought when I got back in the hobby, 54 Mays SGC3. I'll always keep this one, even if my set gets higher. This is the first one I bought. And I blogged about it on my finance blog at the time, just talking about this as an investment, as an alternative asset vehicle. And then I was like, man, I kind of want to start making sports card content. So I started a new TikTok channel, Bonkers Cards, and just started documenting my journey about learning about the history of baseball cards, just talking about everything I was learning from your show, from other shows, everything. And my channel grew quite a bit. And this was about 2 years ago. The channel got to a point where I was documenting a lot of my experience learning. And then I was on TikTok Live. I know we'll probably talk a little bit later about the live streaming piece. And I remember being on TikTok Live and somebody trying to buy a card from me that I was showing my audience. I was just telling them about, maybe it was Pete Rose, like, you know, he's the all-time leader in hits. And some guy on the other side of the live stream said, I want to buy that card from you. Can I Venmo you? And I was like, sure. And sure enough, he did. And I was mind blown. And then a thing clicked where I was like, man, I can sell cards to these people. And I started going to more shows on the weekends and buying and selling and started growing my audience. It was about 2 years ago where I did my first vintage break. And then, you know, it was about a year and a half ago, I left my corporate job and went all in and started Bonkers Cards full time. And I'm grateful for it every day, man. I love what I do and love the audience, the community that I've built. And I love being in the hobby, man. It's been pretty cool.
Well, you're getting some love in the chat just because you're all in on vintage. I want to ask, like, because you're a younger guy.
Yeah.
Why vintage? Why not modern? What is it about vintage that speaks to you, resonate? I mean, Josh is a vintage guy and a modern guy. Same with me. I don't know if Josh or myself are really ultra modern guys, but we're Josh.
No way. Not at all.
Josh, when I say modern, when I say modern, I'm thinking like 90s, 00s, maybe a bit into 2010s. What do you think?
When I think modern, I think of like active players, like 2010 and current is when I think of modern. 90s isn't modern.
But where do you put the 90s then? You can't call it vintage.
It's their own category. It's their own category.
Their own category.
They stand apart.
Which I know Gordy has some thoughts on that. We will get to that too. But but what was it, Gordy, about vintage and not modern that really brought you into it? Yeah,
I loved baseball. I love the sport of baseball, and I also love the history of it. Like, I remember being in 5th, 6th, 7th grade and walking around my elementary school reciting Babe Ruth stats to kids. Like, I was very into the history of baseball at a young age. And then when I got older and started learning about the hobby as an investment, I very quickly kind of saw vintage more so as investing and modern cards more so as trading. Like, modern cards are much more speculative. And a lot of what's happening in the hobby from a modern perspective, I love, first of all, I'm a big fan of Fanatics. I like Michael Rubin. I like what they're doing. It is not that I don't like modern cards. For me personally, I would never feel comfortable in investing, buying modern sports cards in today's market where they fluctuate so much. Most of that stuff will eventually go, what I believe, to almost zero. And for me, I just can't get behind it. And I love that vintage really will appreciate over time. I love that there's an attachment to the history of the game. And I'm an old soul, man. I listen to older music. I like old school rock and roll. I'm not really a modern type of person. So I just gravitated towards it. And I love it, man.
Yeah. Oh. So do I, Gordy. So you're not getting anyone pushing back on that there. And okay, couple of things I wanted to mention. We'll go to some comments too, because there's people that are talking to you. But first of all, TikTok. It's the one platform that might be the biggest of them all, for all I know. And I just don't feel when I'm on it that I don't know. I don't feel at home there. I feel at home on Instagram, on YouTube. I sort of feel at home on Twitter. It's a little bit different, but I do, how does TikTok work for a vintage guy? Why TikTok? Why aren't you more active on Instagram or Twitter?
Yeah, I finally, because of everything that happened earlier this year with TikTok possibly going away, it really woke me up and said, I need to start posting on Instagram and taking it more seriously. So I'm starting to trying to get going on Instagram. So if anybody out there is listening, please follow me on Instagram at Bonkers Cards. But the reason why TikTok has been it for me, man, it's funny how you say you feel at home on Instagram or YouTube. Like I feel at home on TikTok. Goes on TikTok live on Sunday nights at 8, Tuesday nights at 8, Thursday nights at 8, when I go on live and I sell. And I feel like for whatever reason, that was the platform that I learned when I was making financial media content. And I understood like the organic outreach that happens on that platform more so than I've found on Instagram. Like when I create a piece of content on TikTok, sometimes, even though I have 20,000 followers there, like it can go out to 500,000 people. And I remember being extremely excited about that. I also just, for whatever reason, like everyone I feel like does have that one platform they just stick to that is their home base. And for me, when I started, like I said, doing content, like that was just TikTok for me. But I am trying to expand a little bit out of it. I'm writing this email newsletter once a week to try to connect everybody who follows me in all these different places. But I think the platform is really engaging. It's really fun. Some of the content that's on there is incredibly creative, inspiring. I think one of the things that's interesting about the new age of social media now is that you don't know the majority of the people that you follow personally, like in that first world of social media, but the content that is being fed to you is based on the things that you're interested in or want to see more of. And for me, like I loved that about the TikTok platform. I started seeing sports card content and vintage antique content and, whatever it was. I just really like the way the algorithm is built. And God, I hope it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't seem like it's going anywhere anytime soon, man. But let's hope TikTok stays because that's where the big audience is. But yeah, I love it. And to your point also, there's not a lot of vintage guys on there, period. And they also aren't my age either. So I just kind of stick out a little bit, which has been a good thing for me. Like it's different than a lot of people.
Sounds like it's been really good building your presence there and your brand. I mean, hey, I was just curious. I know Josh is big on TikTok, aren't you, Josh? Like tell us about your TikTok.
So I have a couple of lawyer friends who use it all the time and post on there all the time. I can't figure it out. So I'm going to DM you when this is over to get some tips on how to use it. Cause I think you're right. I think it's huge. And I think it could be a good tool. It is very engaging. It's for the kids, Jeremy. I think we're officially.
Josh, I'm telling you, man, my audience, I've looked at the demographics of my audience. I would say 60% of them are over the age of 40. More than half of the people that watch my content are over the age of 40.
Yeah. I want to learn how to use it more.
Yeah.
So another thing, Gordy, you mentioned, you said you used the terminology investment and alternative investment vehicle when you referred or
asset
sort of thing, you said. And that's something that, let's be honest, that's going to rub a few people the wrong way. There's some of that sort of attitude out there of like, this is a hobby. It shouldn't be an investment. How do you reconcile that? Because, or do you have people that ever come at you, because they don't like the way you're talking about their precious cards type of thing?
Yeah, I think there's two points to that. Yes, this is totally a hobby. I absolutely agree with you. There's also there's a lot of different ways you can do this. And I think there's collectors, investors, there's a blend in all of us. This is a piece of my personal collection. This is a beautiful Babe Ruth cut autograph. And if you look at what Babe Ruth cut autographs have done, I wrote a piece about this earlier this year, in terms of the appreciation of anything Babe Ruth related over the last 10 years. And you compare that to what the S&P 500 has done. And the S&P has been on a tear for the last 10 years. You will be shocked to see how well some of specific Babe Ruth items have outperformed the S&P. The 52 Mantel has outperformed the S&P, even in the low grade, which is insane. So it's very hard to debate that these items, when picked correctly, and like I said, primarily vintage, are not going to be a good store of value. I'm not saying it should be your whole portfolio. In fact, I think it should be a very small percentage of it. But what I really like is that my hobby, the thing that I love and feel comfortable investing a lot of money into. I know there's probably a lot of people watching that have a lot of money tied into their cards. It's a hobby, but it makes them feel good to know, hey, this isn't a sunk cost. I can get this money back if, God forbid, something happens and I need it. And hey, it's not sitting in cash where we're not getting any appreciation in our cash. So I'm a huge fan of it as an alternative asset. I will always kindly and politely argue with anybody that it is, as long as it is the right type of card. And that's what makes a market, though, is that some people are going to argue that whatever green shimmer NBA or NFL prospect is their investment. By all means, go for it. People buy small cap stocks and biotech stocks and hope that those go up 100 or 1,000x as well. A lot of them don't. I prefer not to do that. I like to buy Babe Ruth, Willie Mays, Jackie Robinson, and those types of guys. So that's kind of, I guess, my viewpoint on it.
Yeah, I mean, cards are things that we can collect, but also can appreciate and value at the same time. I mean, I don't know. That just seems like a double benefit to me. But you have to do it right. You have to have some bit of foresight if you can. You have to have some experience in it. A little bit of savvy just to make sure that you're buying the right things, and that comes with experience. That's not something that you can just pick up out of the fresh into the hobby. You need to. That's why watching certain content can be very helpful. If you see what people love,
definitely, you
might have an idea that if people love it, that's something that could be that could have a future. Now, you said you love the history of baseball, so I have a trivia question here.
Oh boy, oh no.
No, this is a trivia question, but it's not like I'll let you know. So at the beginning of time, the very beginning of time, baseball was played in, different little leagues regionally around the US, but there was no standardization until something happened. Does anybody know what happened that standardized baseball, and what individual person was at the forefront that really led it, is known for standardizing baseball because of standardizing the equipment, because of standardizing the ball. You used to play a different game. The teams would travel to different stadiums, to different fields to play against different teams. They didn't know what the ball would be like because there was no standardization of ball. Josh, you put up your hand. Do you know?
It's Albert Spalding, and when they made the National League, when he made the National League in 1976. So
but
that's exactly right.
What was the event that caused him to standardize it?
Because he realized that the ball's always different. You don't know what you're doing, and pitchers were like people in the players, their hands were hurting. People were getting beamed in the back of the head. There were deaths all the time. So Spalding, and it's for the Spalding that you've all heard of. He built this big company. He retired from baseball when he was like 27 or 28 in like 1894, and created the Spalding Sporting Goods Company. He was also the guy who invented the first basketball. George Naismith went to Spalding to say, "Hey, can you help me make a basketball that will bounce?" So he did. And he made a basketball, but it was too slippery. So he was the one that invented the little bumps on the ball. He punctured the leather with I don't know, some sort of tool so that you could get better grip on it. So it was Spalding that did that. Then he invented the football, which was an offshoot from rugby. But then what happened was, I think it was Rollins came in, and so Spalding also invented the baseball glove. He was the first one to wear a glove. He
was an innovator.
Baseball players would not wear gloves because they were looked at as weak. They couldn't handle it. So they wouldn't wear gloves. But when Spalding realized that the balls he had standardized were traveling faster, hurting players' hands more, he's like, I'm going to put on a glove now. And he wore a glove. And because he was so well respected, the whole National League was now willing to wear gloves. And then the glove evolved. And then it was Rollins that put the web between the thumb and the finger to build the pocket. And then Rollins took over basically, I think it was in I just watched this all. I just learned this all last night, guys. This is not information that I had stored in my head. I just learned this all last night. But I think it was 1973 maybe. Rollins came in and got the contract from Major League Baseball. And I think now it's somebody else. I don't know exactly. But in any event, it's very
that's pretty sweet.
You said the history of baseball. I thought I'd throw that out there tonight.
I love that. Yeah, no, there's so much good history and stories, and a lot of the players on the cards that we collect kind of tap into those stories. And I think that's super neat. That's another really added benefit to the hobby, and specifically the vintage hobby, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's neat stuff for sure. How did you know that, Josh?
I just, I love baseball history also, and read up. I've been reading about it for a long time, a decade. So I just knew it. I have a lot of worthless knowledge up here, so floating around.
Well, it's interesting. It's fun. Okay. We're going to talk about why vintage is the backbone of the hobby. That's something that you truly believe, Gordy. Before we do, I want to run through some more comments because the chat is on fire, as they always are here on Saturday nights. Junkwax Museum, good evening to you. Orlando is, hey, when Orlando says hi, you have to say hello, Orlando. He is the hobby ambassador. Robert Scott, really enjoying Gordy's channel, especially at the table negotiations at shows. So you're doing some of that. Vintage Oddball says, can't wait to see everybody a couple of weeks at the National. If you see my ugly mug, say hello. Chris C says he should have a site called Going Bonkers. That's a good one. Southern Collector Tony says, Gordy's a good guy. I've done some deals with him. Fabulous young person in our vintage realm. Vintage card collector says, you had me at vintage. Orlando says, I enjoy Gordy's card show videos also. So you got some people are already watching what you're doing. Rob Scott says, it's great to see younger guys going all in as vintage dealers. The hobby is in good hands. Chris C says, if hobby can get kids to love vintage, that would be awesome. Yeah, some do, but I think it's a smaller percentage than those who love the modern stuff. Double D Dylan just subbed to you, Gordy. Stoked to check you out. There you go. Eric Young says 99s to 00s is its own era, which I think that's right, Josh. No? Yeah.
Yes, I agree. I think so.
Mosaic Mind says classic rock. What are Gordy's top 3 bands? All right, Gordy, let's hear it.
Yeah.
Easy money. Bruce Springsteen, the E Street Band is something. I'm a Jersey guy. I love Bruce. I was born and raised listening to his music. Number 2 is The Band, Bob Dylan's backup band that eventually became just unbelievable. The band, the best live performance maybe of all time is The Last Waltz by the band. Jeremy, a couple Canadians in the band.
Okay, nice. Yeah.
I love the band. And then number 3, there's a lot of different directions I could go with. I mean, I really like storytellers and singers. Like I was honestly going to say Bob Dylan as number 3, but he's not really a band. But I really like Dylan. Kind of evolved into Springsteen, and I actually think now, even in today, Zach Bryan, some of the more folk and country guys have a lot of Springsteen in them. So I'd say somewhere in that mix.
How about you, Josh? What's 1 or 2 of your favorites?
Dylan, Floyd, and Zeppelin. 1, 2, 3. So.
I'm Zillin. I'm Zeppelin. Steely Dan is probably my favorite. And
Yeah.
I love the Steve Miller Band, but Steely Dan is probably one of the Doobie Brothers. Love the Doobies.
You know how Steely Dan got their name, right?
I've heard the story, but remind us.
I'll Google it. It's a family episode tonight. So
Okay. All right. Sundine564 says vintage cards on TikTok is hilariously ironic. I know, right?
Yeah.
Dale Prod says, I'm not into vintage because I collect as a fan. Can't be a fan of ghosts. I'm surprised the chat hasn't ripped you apart for that one, Dale Prod, because you can be a fan of dead people's product, watching highlights, movies, music, and sports. I mean, it's culture, it's history. So I disagree, but I also collect what you like. That's number one. That's number one. Hobby Champ says, if this guy doesn't like the Tragically Hip and Gord Downing, I'm out.
Yes.
Are you familiar with the Tragically Hip, Gordy?
I'm not, man. I'm not.
They're like Canada's biggest rock. Well, one of the biggest bands ever to come out of Canada. They didn't catch on a ton in the States, but a little bit. They're a great band. Aaron Adams, what's Josh drinking? People always want to know. What are you drinking?
Coffee and water. That's my brother.
Okay. Southern Collector Tony, I enjoy my hobby assets much more than my mutual funds. Exactly. So do I. Laura says vintage is the foundation for everything else that comes after. And right there, that might be the segue that we need, Gordy, to go into.
Yeah.
Why is vintage the backbone of the hobby? That's something that you mentioned to me. So why don't you start kind of riffing on that, if you don't mind?
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about how I was going to approach this to you, because there's a lot of different ways you can cut this up. I think vintage, the way we look at it, the older, wherever you want to start, the very first baseball cards all the way to the tobacco cards, to the 50s, wherever your guys, whatever people want to make the cutoff, like those are vintage cards. They were the first sports cards of our hobby. Those cards were what we first integrated with and associated with collecting. And as the hobby has evolved, people have kind of gravitated and identified these vintage cards as the foundation, the building blocks of the hobby. So that's why I like to, first of all, call it the backbone. I think I hate to be overgeneralizing, but this is my honest take. I do think if you look at the percentage of people that are into vintage, I think a higher percentage of them are truly just collectors of vintage versus the modern cards. There are absolutely guys who collect modern cards, and by no means am I saying that. But I do think there is more true collectors that are passionate about the vintage cards. And this industry is built really for the collector. And if we talk about like what the collector is looking for, I think a lot of them are looking for vintage cards. And part of the reason of that is because people associate collecting to a prior time oftentimes in their life. They see these cards as kind of an emotion, a connection to a prior period of nostalgia. I think nostalgia is an incredibly powerful emotion that honestly has fueled a lot of this whole thing that we call the hobby. I'm even starting to see it for myself in the first time in some of these like 2004, 2005, 2006 cards. And I see them, I'm like, wow, like I love that card because I remember being 9 and 10 years old and opening cards that had that design. And that's where, we'll talk about later how I do think vintage is always going to be evolving in terms of the time period that it comes from. But you think about vintage being literally the foundation of the cards that built the hobby, that collectors are highly associated to it. And then lastly, and also maybe most importantly, let's talk about the value of the highest valued sports cards. They are vintage cards. I mean, take a look at Heritage last night. Look at the numbers that Heritage put up. There's a couple modern cards, sure. There's some cards that are, in this millennia, but the majority of the big ticket items are old vintage cards, man. That is where the high dollar value, the alternative asset, that is vintage. And even a larger category is vintage baseball. Like really vintage baseball is like the wagon for the alternative asset. There are certainly basketball cards, don't get me wrong, that are super high value as well. But if you look at Heritage last night, some of those huge sales, you look at what's going to be coming up in the summer catalog auctions, the big items, they're vintage, man. So that's my argument for why it's the backbone of the hobby. And that's what I'll say about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything you said makes sense. And like I started collecting in 1980 and I collected cards from 1980 and all the way through the 80s. And as I got to the late 80s, I started becoming more interested in the history. So I wonder if this is a way that other people who might come in could go back in time. And for me, it was, okay, I would go to the LCS and I would see some older cards, Joe Daly sports cards in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. And this is like 1988, 89. And he's got Guy Lafleur rookie cards and some baseball too, but mostly hockey, Guy Lafleur and Bobby Hull, like cards from the early 70s, the late 50s. And I'd see these and I knew about these players. I'd seen them play, a couple of them. And I think to myself, wow, $300 for a card or $800, that's so much money for a card.
Yeah.
And I would start to want them. And then I realized that, okay, there's a theme here, because I wanted to collect players who would have lasting power and were important. So I wasn't doing Hall of Famers. I was doing 1,000-point men. It's kind of like doing, 500 home runs or 300 wins or whatever it is. I wanted the 1,000-point men, and I had to go all the way back into the 50s to get that complete. I completed that eventually. And but there's me as a teenager, literally not even 20 years old. And I'm sitting there starting my 1,000-point man collection and that helped me to learn about earlier card sets. So is that a way that, Gordy, that you think, I know it's only one way, but that was my original foray into vintage in like 89. I remember it was right before I graduated high school, and I bought my Bobby Hull rookie with money I made working at the VHS rental video store. Star Time Photo Video. If any Winnipeggers out there watching or listening remember that place. And that had me going back in time. And I've never stopped. And I love it. And I was talking about it with Tony on the episode that I recorded with him on Southern Collector that'll come out on Tuesday. Right now, I collect a lot of eras, Gordy, but my favorite between all the eras, all the sports, is pre-war baseball. Like that's where I can't wait for the National in 2 weeks, and hopefully I can pick up a few pieces. But what do you think of that? Is that a way that you think people can get into it, or are there other ways?
Absolutely, man. Yeah, no, I mean, look at you right there. I mean, I could see you traveling in time as you're telling me that story and attaching yourself to the nostalgia of that event, of you putting that together. And the other thing that makes it so important as the backbone, and how that definitely warrants it, you touched on it, the cultural relevance. I know you're a huge hockey guy, Jeremy, and I'm wondering, because I also know the behemoth card that you added to your PC this year too. So you've got all these different dimensions in how you collect. And I don't mean by all means, I'm happy for everyone, however they want to collect. And I'm just trying to say, on the vintage side of things, these players, whether vintage hockey, like I know you're up, I've never even been to Canada, I got to get up there, but hockey is like your guys' thing. Like baseball is America's pastime. And as baseball has evolved, so did America. Baseball and America kind of grew up together. So a lot of like the most historically significant people in the hobby are historically significant people in America. Babe Ruth, Jackie Robinson, these types of people, they're culturally relevant. And that is also like foundational in their value, but also why they're foundational to the hobby, because of their cultural relevance. The guys that are in the modern market right now that are doing really well, and girls, Caitlin Clark is culturally relevant right now. And that's why her valuations are super high. Same things with some of like these quarterbacks that come out. There's hype around them. They're relevant culturally right now. So that's the valuation. And so, yeah, to point on you saying, is that a good example? Yes. Collecting 1,000-point scorers or 500 home run club members, people that you're like, I want to be attached to this piece of history, this piece of culture of Americana, like that's the backbone, man. That's why we're collecting. That's why we're doing this. That's why the people that have that bug that you have do it, in my opinion.
Yeah. You mentioned baseball is, it's America's pastime. It is Americana. In Canada, hockey is kind of the same thing up here.
Yeah.
But Canadians do, you go to the Sport Card Expo in Toronto, 15 years ago, it was 80% hockey plus. Now it's like half that. It's tons of baseball, basketball, football, not not as much as you'll get at the national or the big US shows, but there's a lot more there. Josh, you come to you're at all the shows, you're at the expo, you come there. Am I right? Do you look around? Are you seeing more and more non-hockey at the expo in Toronto?
Yeah, I've been to 4 of them, and it seems like it's mostly hockey, but there's a lot of basketball and baseball, which I was surprised to see. Not a lot of football, but a lot of baseball and basketball.
Yeah. There not a lot of football, huh?
No, it's too bad.
Jeremy, do you like that in Canada? You're starting to see less hockey and more of those other sports. Like, as somebody who likes to collect hockey, like, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, do I like it? Yeah, I like it because I think it'll appeal to more people south of the border. You know, if I can say that and we can get more people up here, that's more times a year that I'm going to see my friends from south of the border, you know? So I like that about it. I'm also like, listen, I walk right past all the modern basketball and the modern football and the modern soccer. I'm not interested in collecting those things. I walk right past it.
Yeah.
But I also walk right past all the TCG stuff. I have no interest in that, but I love looking at modern and vintage hockey, and then vintage baseball, basketball, football, like all of it. And there's not a lot of basketball I recognize, but you know, there are only 3 sets or whatever from before 1970, but I like it when I see it. I like looking at it. And, you know, I've got cards that I want to own from all these various, from these various sports. So yeah. But as far as, you know, there is so much more modern basketball, baseball, football that I'm not interested in. So I'd rather there was cards I was interested in, but it's a big enough show that, I mean, listen, I'm not going to be greedy. There's plenty of cards for me to look at and choose from as I'm window shopping and walking the aisles of the show. So
I think that, you know, that's to my point earlier when I was saying how I do love Fanatics, because they're bringing more people into this, man. Whatever you want to collect, that's great. Like, it's just good for the health and the hobby, the ecosystem. Like, get more collectors involved. Whatever you want to collect, that's great. So yeah, there's a little bit more diversity in terms of what's bringing people out to the shows. I do think eventually these people do also trickle into other categories. I believe a lot of modern collectors, I know it, people that are watching my show, they'll message me, be like, man, I've been doing modern stuff for a while, but I really want to get into vintage. Like, saw your show, love your content. Like, what do you got? And I think that's super neat that, you know, Fanatics can attract you in for an Aaron Judge card, but then slowly over time, they're over here. Like, I think I want Mickey Mantle, or maybe a little over time, they're going to go up this way and be like, you know, I am an Oilers fan, or I do really like hockey. Like, there's hockey cards, and, you know, that's why they're so important to me, and why I hope to continue to see, you know, really cool marketing pushes and stuff like that from them.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, when you said that you love what they're doing, but it's not your wheelhouse, but you love it. That's actually a pretty interesting position to have, and one that could cause some pushback from some people who don't like what Fanatics is doing. So, but listen, you are you've got a really focused outlook. It's your own outlook, and it's working for you. And so, you know, I think if people are watching, listening, you know, instead of just pushing back and saying, how can you like what they're doing over there? Here's somebody who isn't even breaking their product, but sees the benefits of what they're doing. So they are definitely bringing more attention to the sports card hobby. Some people argue that's no good. Prices are going to go up further. People who want to buy more. Some people who have a lot of cards think it's great. Values of our collections are going up. So that could be good there too. There's always the yin and the yang to all these different positions and thoughts that we're having. So tons of comments, guys, as always, especially lately. We're gonna go. Josh, do you have anything you want to mention based on the vintage talk and the foundation and Americana and all that?
So yeah, baseball absolutely is like you know, from Field of Dreams, it's like America, like steamrolls on and on, like a blackboard erased. It's the best monologue in movie history, and it's great. Like 19th century baseball, I think is some of the coolest stuff. And I think in our Instagram and social media bubble, I think we get a little bit skewed because most of those guys do not, you know, they have cricket phones and don't really go on social media. So I think they're underrepresented. And I'm just joking with the cricket phones. But I mean, there's like very strong vintage, at least 19th century collecting base and vintage stuff. Like he's right. Gordy's right. Like Mantel's not going anywhere. Bruce's not going anywhere. No one or talking now saw him play, and they're still commanding pretty good prices, pretty strong prices in all grade levels, right? It's not like a grade dependent card.
The point you made there that stuck out to me, Josh, is that not everybody's on social media. I know we've talked about that before here on the show, but the hobby is a lot bigger than any one online community, any one card show, any one group of collectors who have found each other on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok or X or Facebook or anything. I mean, and then there's everybody who only goes to shows or the LCS. We talked last week at the end of the show when Chris Hoge was on about how June was like a record-breaking month for tracked sales in the auction houses at $305 million or 15 or whatever it was. Then I started thinking to myself, how would you extrapolate that to the actual hobby, which includes so many other venues and channels for people to transact? Like that's just the 11 auction houses, including eBay, the big one, that they are tracking. That doesn't include personal sales. That doesn't include the online casinos. It doesn't include all the breaking going on elsewhere. It doesn't include card show sales, private sales. And there's so many other channels. So 305 million a year. Sorry, 300 million a month. So let's say that's $36 million a year if we're just extrapolating that big month. But what factor could you apply to that to kind of project what all the other sales are by channel, by Facebook group sales and Instagram sales and LCS sales and card show sales and the whatnots of the world? Like it's gotta be like, I don't know, but it's billions.
I was trying to find the data. Somebody released recently a really good piece on LinkedIn about the size of the collectibles market and how much the total transaction volume is represented in public versus private sales. And I don't want to say the exact number because I can't recall it, and I was trying to find it before the show. But I know for a fact that the data said there was way more private sales than public sales. To your point, like everything that you're putting in there, like if we're doing 315 million a month in just eBay, Golden, and a couple of those auction houses, like we're talking maybe potentially multiple billions of dollars per month in transaction volume on sports cards alone. And it's also hard to be able to tell in terms of like what else you want to put in that category that's related to the hobby, like memorabilia and stuff like that. It's hard to really get your head around like actually how big this is and how I love, Josh, you brought up a good point. It's hard for people also to realize like how big it is because there's really big groups in the hobby that are super underrepresented on social media, which is how we're consuming the information around the hobby. And I talk to a lot of people. I will talk to anybody, any age. I'm super interested to learn and meet other people. And I realize every time I meet some of these people, either at shows who have never heard of somebody who's really big in the hobby that has this big following. And then sometimes they're bringing up somebody to me that's like, you never heard of this guy? Like the biggest at X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, no. And I do this for a living. So like it is a massively large ecosystem. There's a ton of liquidity moving around. And again, all of this liquidity is happening as valuations of like the main assets in it are growing. You've got a ton more companies being built in terms of card grading companies. Somehow there becomes more and more auction houses like every week. You're getting more auction houses. You're getting more technology. You're getting more like community entertainment products. I mean, I was blown away. I was at Fanatics Fest. There was so much I'm still thinking about. There was a lot of corporate sponsorship companies that were there trying to, talk about what they're doing for the hobby. There was also the factor of just how many sports fans were there that weren't necessarily yet collectors that were there. I can ramble on about that, but I'll end it at the point of saying the hobby is so big and the business of the hobby is so big. And I think we're just still early innings, man. I think it's going to keep going.
We've been early innings for a while.
Yeah.
All right. Great stuff, Gordy. Thank you. Let's do some comments now from the chat. First, say hello to Travis Mater. What is up, Travis? Vintage Sports Cardboard says vintage is the hobby. Jason Pringle is celebrating his 20th anniversary. And Jordan says hi, his wife Jordan, lovely couple in the hobby. Michael Berard, Gordy is great to deal with. Been buying cards from him and participate in his breaks all the time. Now, by breaks, just so I'm clear, is it always set breaks or are you breaking vintage wax as well?
Yeah, I definitely don't do any vintage wax, and I don't do I'm never opening any product or anything like that. I try to do it roughly once a month. I wouldn't say it's a big part of my platform. It's a section of it. But what I'll do is, like you mentioned earlier, like right now I have a 51 Bowman complete set, and I've got some slabs here. And I'll get a set, and I'll get all the Hall of Famers graded. This is 52 total slabs. And the big prize card is this guy right here, the 51 Mantel. It's a PSA 6. It's a huge card, his rookie. And I also have, a PSA 2. The Mazes rookie is in this as well. So I have the full set, 324 cards plus the bonus Mantel, the PSA 6, 325 total cards. So I sell 325 spots. Everybody gets a card at random. So once all the spots are sold and filled, the price varies depending on the value of the set, the cards in it, etc. I do a live stream. My show is always a live stream. And I'll put everybody's name in a randomizer. Their names get scrambled up a certain amount of times, depending on whatever pre-number is determined. And whatever number you land on is the card you get. So if you land on number 151, you're getting Larry Doby. If you land on, for this break, the big one is going to be spot 325. That's going to be the PSA 6 Mantel. So everybody gets a card. It's different than, I guess, a break where you're ripping packs and you're saying, I get this team and stuff like that. It's not like that. But it's how, I saw it being done in the hobby, and I knew I had an audience that was interested in doing it. So I launched my first one. I've done 21 vintage breaks in the last 2 years. So that's roughly around one a month.
Vintage set, just to be clear, vintage set breaks. Because when people hear breaks, they think unopened product. I think they do.
Yeah.
I think set breaks is a bit more clear for the rest of us.
Vintage set break. I've never done like a mixer or anything where there's like random cards or anything like that. But yeah, it's a cool part of the channel. Guys have won cards they never could have gotten elsewise other than winning through a vintage set break, which has been really cool to see.
Gordy, how do you feel about the guys that someone might buy 10 spots and get 10 commons?
Yeah.
How do you emotionally process that?
Jeremy, that's why I don't do it a lot, because I don't really like that piece to it. And I talk about it with my wife all the time when I'm putting it together and I think about it. It's like I can only put the product out there, and if people want to buy it and want to participate in it, they do it. And they have to know, I wish everybody could win a 51 Mantel PSA 6. They just can't. So I don't know what the future of it for me and doing it is. I know that it's something that the audience enjoys having as part of my program and things that I offer. I never want it to be what I'm primarily focused on. I think the people who participate in the hobby participate in it for a ton of different things. And what I want to be is a brand, whether it's a media channel, a vintage dealer, whatever it is that I'm viewed at. I want to be able to offer that to the people that watch me. But
I want to ask you a question, because we've talked a lot about, last week, we talked a lot about gambling and addiction in the hobby, and shout out Collectors MD for offering a platform, a resource, a support group for people who need help and want that. Have you ever felt maybe one of your customers was spending too much money? Have you ever thought about cutting somebody off? Have you ever had an experience with a customer that couldn't pay or disappeared on you, or said to you, you know what, man, sorry, I love what you're doing, but I can't do it. I'm having issues.
Yeah. I'm trying to think through doing it for a while. I've never had somebody who said they couldn't pay. I always take my payment.
Yeah, that was a bad question.
I take it up front. I think I've had people that have done it for a couple of times and say, hey, it's not for me. I've never felt like I had to cut anybody off. So no, I haven't seen I could see how that could happen for sure. But I don't do it in the volume enough to make that like a primary.
I have another question for you.
Risk. Yeah, go ahead.
When you price it out and are you trying my guess is that you're buying right so that when you're selling, your total revenue on a set would comp out pretty close to what the set would comp out to. Like if you're selling 300 spots at $100 a spot, whatever that is, 30 grand or whatever, that's what the cards should be worth at the end of the day, plus a bit for your time, effort, and shipping kind of thing.
Yeah, I think everyone's going to have a different, I guess, opinion on it in terms of what the time and effort and energy is worth to do it. I think people underestimate the difficulty of putting something together like that at that scale. So I obviously put something in for myself, and then, yeah, you can obviously always look up the value of the cards, the sets and stuff like that. People ask me about it, but I never share. And I think it's a good business practice in general. Like, I think when people talk about money, people have asked me before, like, what are you making and that type of stuff. Never felt comfortable sharing that because it doesn't ever lead to anything that's going to be productive. And again, I think everybody values their time differently than other people. So I try to do what makes sense for me. That's respectful for the people that want to join. And like I said, it's something that's a big part of, it's not a big part of what I do. It's a part of the overall ecosystem of it. But no. And it's interesting to see it evolve. Like I remember seeing it for the first time 2-3 years ago, and there was only a few players in the space that did it. And there's definitely more people doing it now. And as more people get involved with it, it should make the pricing of it continuously more competitive as well. Mm-hmm. But it's a weird part. Like I said, it's something I still like grapple with and try to figure out like what I want to do with as like a product. Cause I definitely,
I think it's good that you're self-evaluating, and self-reflecting. And, okay, Josh, any thoughts before I go back to comments? Because I got 19 I want to run through here.
I think it's a cool idea. I mean, also, I think people are getting into these breaks. They know they have a 1 in 325 chance of getting a big hit. And I think it's, they know the risks. They're adults. And also, it's weird people would ask how much you make because that's really irrelevant to anything.
If you think about what the odds are in terms of getting an ROI on some of the modern hobby product that people are ripping, it's crazy. So I'm aware of that as well. It is just a weird spot of it. I know that's also, there's a lot of gray area. People have pushed me all the time to do repack products, which is like a similar conversation as well as this. Like, hey, in one of these mystery boxes here, you've got a sick card, and then you rip it open. And I don't know. I've never bought one, but I haven't heard of a lot of positive repack. Right. I mean, there's the big players that do it that probably have a lot more higher standards than somebody that, is maybe not backed by venture equity capital and all this type of stuff. But it's a weird space of the hobby for sure.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah, no doubt. Okay, let's do some comments. We're going to go back in time to the music discussion. Ziggy No says, the Grateful Dead, the Doors, the Beatles, and the Rolling Stones. I mean, that's a pretty good lineup right there. Gordy, can't believe you forgot about some of the Doors. Love the Doors and the Beatles and the Stones myself. Never got into the Dead, but nothing against them. Black Sabbath. I mean, that's my 6-year-old loves Black Sabbath. Iron Man's his favorite song. And he's 6. Kinger. And look at that. It's a 6-year-old who likes vintage music. Why can't kids like vintage cards? Kinger says, the three of you are vintage first collectors. May I ask, do you place those special 90s inserts of the right player on the same plateau as vintage collecting? Josh, I mean, that's your wheelhouse.
100%. I mean, Michael Jordan is the Babe Ruth of basketball. He's never going anywhere. So that's absolutely the same level as Mickey Mantle and Babe Ruth. Hockey, I mean, right? Gretzky's not going anywhere. Even when the Russian breaks the goal record, Gretzky still has the all-time points record. So, that's solidified Mount Rushmore of hobby goats.
And for me, when I was on Tony's show, Southern Collector, which hasn't come out yet till Tuesday, but we recorded it, he said he's going to want me to show some cards. So I brought out some of my favorite vintage cards and some of my favorite modern cards. And I didn't show the modern because he didn't want me to, but like there's some of my favorite modern cards in my collection, and they're still on my desk. I haven't put them away since I was preparing for that. But yeah, I'm with Josh. I hold modern day, goats, for lack of a better term, up there with the older guys too, but I enjoy the vintage more. I really do. I just do. Dino Lacobo, welcome to the show. We've got Stukes, who says the Stones, Led Zeppelin, Randy Bachman with the Guess Who or BTO. I grew up with BTO with Fred Turner from BTO. The T in Turner, the T in BTO is Fred Turner, and his kid and I were good buddies. We were in the same grade in junior high and high school. So I grew up going to their house and watching him play bass. Stuke says, Jeremy Disson, Neil Young, and the Guess Who. I like the Who better than the Guess Who. I'll be honest with you guys. Michael Ham says, collectors do not collect modern. I don't know. What do you think? Let's hear. Well, okay, we have a couple of responses. Josh, you reacted first. What do you say to Michael Ham?
I think there are some, modern collectors. Absolutely. Judge, Ohtani, I don't know, Peyton Manning. I mean, is that modern, Peyton Manning?
Modern enough.
Modern enough, Jefferson. I mean, I think there's modern collectors. I think they get drowned out by the, flipping people.
Yeah, there are. I mean, I know modern collectors, but it's just a different product. Dan's Vintage says, I must be smart because I only collect vintage baseball. Best Sports Cards Live guest ever. Gordy, we got some fans out there. Midlife Greg says vintage is the backbone because vintage is stable. Vintage guys are dead and don't get hurt or arrested. Plus, the income of vintage collectors is stable as well. Good point. Turpin Force says today Aaron Judge became the fastest player to reach 350 home runs. That is a big deal, and he's going to go down. He will likely go down or may go down as an all-time great. Mosaic Mind says collectors are 100% the backbone of the hobby. If sports remain culturally relevant, memorabilia collecting, like cards, remain relevant. If sports interest remains high, cards will remain relevant. I've been saying that for years. I couldn't agree more. Mosaic Mind. Joseph Zavero says the income of vintage collectors is stable. He agrees 100%. Orlando says pre-war baseball is the best. So much history in early baseball. Yep. And Southern Tony says, as hobby boxes go higher and higher in price with almost no return on investment, more people will look at vintage as a viable option. Dan's Vintage says, I follow baseball every single day, at least one game watched per day. Midlife Greg, any player that is found in U.S. history textbooks will always have strong demand for their cards. Yeah, one guy we didn't mention earlier was Lou Gehrig, another one. Ziggy No said, Gordy loved Fanatics Fest 2. Chris C, pop count. You mean that inaccurate PSA manipulative list? Ziggy No says, do you put the set together or buy complete sets, Gordy, for your set breaks?
Mixture of both. I've done it both ways. It's obviously easier logistically if I can buy the set together, save me time, but depends on the set.
And then this comment here from Ed Paradise, I love this comment. It says, vintage players fought in wars, broke color barriers, and worked a second job. They were loyal to their teams and cities. They played baseball because they loved the sport like we do. Like, boom, bingo. Like, I love that comment. What, Josh? What?
Can I make, that's a great comment. Can I make one point of nitpicking at that comment? Is that okay?
Yeah.
They weren't loyal to their city. They were owned by the team and the reserve clause, so they couldn't leave on free agency. Free agency didn't start until 1967. I think it was with Flood and then Drysdale and Koufax. Or Drysdale and another, I forget the other guy whose name was. But so anyway, that was my point. They weren't.
But I think the point is that they were loyal to the guys on the diamond that they played with.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
I know Ed Paradise, and yeah, that's a great comment, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching.
Yeah, I mean, because that's another thing. Like, that's a humongous difference for me between vintage and modern. When we had Theo on Clemente Collector on a couple weeks ago, he wanted to talk about why player collecting is the best way to collect, and I disagree with that. For me, I disagree with that. And then I think like for a vintage player, it's different. It's probably better, but for a modern player, I mean, how many times do I see people right after their player gets traded saying collection for sale? You know, like they don't want the player on a different team. And so that's a huge thing. Players move around so much more nowadays than they used to, that it's harder to be a fan of a player if that is your favorite player on your favorite team, which is often how people start collecting. Compare that to when people say, hey, I want to start a new player PC. Any suggestions who I should collect? Like, you're not going to, that's even a step in the wrong direction of, okay, that's going to end well for you, where you don't even know who you want to collect for yourself. So, okay. I think we got through the comments there that I want to do. A bunch more have come in, you guys, of course. And Roberto Clemente, Greg Jeffrey. Yeah, a lot. Okay, guys, I can't keep up right now with everything, but appreciate all of it. And okay, so Gordy, anything else on your mind? We have you scheduled for another 15 minutes or so. Then Evan Parker is going to join us. And I just want to make sure we get as much out of you as we can. So what else is on your mind?
Yeah. One of the talking points was I'm excited to see where card shows go in the future and what I think the whole live selling marketplace is doing right now for the hobby and where it's going to go in the future. I talked about that first moment. I made a live sale 2 or 3 years ago, and that has built over time into my live show. That has been a massive, it's the backbone of Bonkers Cards is my live show. And I think I'm just excited. I'm fascinated to see like the evolution of how we buy cards and interact with other collectors through the live selling platform, specifically TikTok Live. eBay Live is pushing heavy. I've had several conversations about what the future of that platform is going to look like, and it's going to be interesting to see. And I think there's a lot of positive that comes with it. And part of it is that there's pros and cons to card shows for sure. But what the live show experience gives you is that interaction with other collectors. It's a lot easier to message a guy to be like, hey, man, that was a great pickup. I love that Clemente card. I wanted that card. That was awesome. When you're at a card show and you buy a card, it's a very like kind of personal experience to you. And it's also most of the time not the most pleasant experience either. If you're buying from a dealer, oftentimes it's just not enjoyable most of the time. As somebody who buys a lot from dealers, there's something really positive about the experience of buying a card in the live selling marketplace. The community that's there, the cards that are there, it's exciting, it's different. And I think that is going to really grow a lot. And I think it's on some people's radars, but like this live selling thing is really big. I've seen it. It changed my life. I'm sitting here talking to you, Jeremy. Live selling changed my life 2-3 years ago. And it's going to continue to evolve and get to be a bigger place of where commerce is done across all categories, not just sports cards. But there's something there in terms of the fact that it's a social connection. And, I think card shows are going to adapt into social selling and live selling in the future, even more so. I had that on my mind as well after Fanatics Fest, and I'm excited to see what the National brings this year. But that's really on my mind a lot right now.
Well, that's interesting, especially after the last couple of weeks of hobby content that I've been involved in, either creating or responding to and thinking about, because the narrative that I'm mostly familiar with and aware of and consuming myself right now is just how dangerous it is for people to go on to the live selling platforms, the Whatnots and the Fanatics Lives and eBay Live, perhaps. Maybe it's on TikTok as well, because now I don't know how it is for when you're just selling singles. I think that's a different thing, and it also maybe depends on how you are selling. My understanding is that on the what we're now calling the online casino platforms, there's a lot of like predatory sales tactics, high pressure sales tactics. Like, are you sitting there on your shows saying, "Come on, guys, get the price up. If this isn't enough, are you crazy? Like, $100 for this card, this should be $500. What are you guys doing? Get the bids up." Like, are you doing that? Are you getting mad at your audience for not bidding enough?
God, no. I don't auction cards either, though. Like so I just bought, there's a huge collection. There's like 130 slabs came here yesterday. What I'm going to do with this, and I'll pick one out just randomly. There's a
show us how you do. Give us a run. How do you?
I'll rip it right now, man. So on my live show, like I'll have 130 slabs tomorrow night for sale on Bonkers Cards. Bonkers Cards Live Sunday night, 8:00, and I'll go on with all of my pickups for the week, whether it was collections I bought or card shows that I go to. I'm looking this up right now. 63 Mantel, PSA 4, and I'll go where they're pricing at the last few sales. 335, 420, 445, 466, 468. So I'll be like, all right, guys, 63 Mantel. This is $450. And then I'm just going to hold this here for like 3 to 5 seconds and wait, because I'll get 100, 200 people that are watching my show concurrently at one time. If somebody says, I'll take it, I'll be like, that's sold to Morty. Sold to Morty. Thank you. Ring the bell, Morty. He's taking it $450. And I put it to the side. Morty pays me. Sometimes no one takes the Mantel first. I'll go to the 54 Maze, SGC3. This is probably $300, $400 card. $400, guys, $400. And then somebody might say, hey, Gordy, I'll do $350 on that. And I'll go back and say, I'll do it $375. You want to do it $375? And then somebody will say, that's a deal. Boom. Sounds good. Right? Post-it note goes to the next card. But I'm never bidding. That's why I don't sell on Whatnot. I don't sell anywhere other than my live show currently, because I like the control of knowing what I'm selling the cards for. And I have been in a room or two, because I'm curious to learn on what these other people are doing and how they're selling on their platforms. But the bidding thing and like getting mad at people for not bidding it higher, like, dude, that's that's crazy. Yeah.
My advice to you, if you don't need my advice really anymore. You've blazed your own trail here, Gordy, but to stay out of the crosshairs of a lot of people in the chat here and people who are trying to look out for the betterment of the hobby and people not going into debt and all that.
Yeah.
is to not do these things that they're doing on these other platforms that people are just hating, and like the high pressure sales, and it can be really bad. It can be really bad for a lot of people, and that's why Collectors MD has become something. But I think you're doing it differently. From what I can tell, I think you're doing it differently, and that's a good thing. You're literally just a card show online doing live sales. You're not correct. The fact that you're coming with prices and you're not auctioning them, I think that's separates you from that pack that is getting a lot of attention right now from a lot of people, and it's not good attention. They get a lot of positive attention too, because people can't stay away. But
there's something that people love coming back to my show because they don't know what I bought this week. And I have like a subscription service or whatever that people can see what I'm buying. But when you log on to my live show, you're like, what did Gordy get this week? And then I'm just funneling cards out. I'll sell probably 50 to 100 of these cards in the evening, because it's just like, bang, 64 Mantel, $300, $400, whatever it is. And we just keep going. And somebody's like, ooh, I like that one. I'm going to take it, and that's where I'm talking about. You get that banter, that community, because people are writing in the chat. They're like, I love that card, or great pickup, Jack, or great pickup, John. And man, I'm super optimistic about what live selling can be because of that community piece. And I think, Jeremy, a lot of it falls on, there's a lot of responsibility on the person who's running the show. I talk about this a lot. I'm crazy grateful for the people that watch my stuff, and I'm really respectful of their time. And the people that are selling on those platforms have to realize they're taking time from people. That is their most valuable asset they have. So when you're coming on that show, man, it's your responsibility to entertain, educate, inspire, do something for them. And in my case, I'm bringing them baseball cards, which they love to do. I love to do it. And like I said, like, it's just, I'm extremely grateful for it. So, I love it, man.
Yeah. Well, I listen, I think you seem to be doing it in a way that is productive and hopefully healthy for everybody. And so that's good. I'm going to go to a few comments here. Josh, think about your own comments. But we'll go to the chat first. First of all, Joseph Zavero with a nice tip for the host. Thank you so much, Joseph. Appreciate that. Vintage card collector. Here's a tough one for you, Gordy. How is a vintage set break not a repack?
Well, I think the set break's pretty straightforward. It's just there's 325 cards here. You're going to get one of them at random. You're going to watch it live in terms of which one you get, and that's it. A repack, you're grabbing a sealed product of card. You don't know how it was assigned to you oftentimes. Like, why did I get this one or not that one? And I don't know. I don't do repacks, but from my understanding, there's a lot of variety in those products. Like, it's not just one set labeled through. I guess you could do a 51 Bowman repack where you buy a ton of 51 Bowman commons and you turn them in these little packs, and you sell packs of 51 Bowman commons for whatever, and you get a couple in them. But it's like,
I think there's some similarities and there's some differences. The similarities that you're buying a random one out of however many 325 cards, whatever it is, in a 51 Bowman set example, but exactly what's in there, and you're getting a card based on the card number. There are similarities. There's a few differences, but that's okay. We'll move on from that one. Ziggy, no, can Gordy tell us more on how it changed his life? Only TikTok? Would you use another platform? You know what? We're not going to do that. Thanks for the question, Ziggy. We're not going to do that question right now, Gordy. We just don't have time. Double D says, what is Gordy's all-time favorite set? We have time for that one.
54 tops.
Yeah, there you go. Robert Scott says, face-to-face deals at a show are the best. Nothing beats respectful negotiation on both sides of the table, ending with a handshake. And I'll let you respond to these, Gordy. Stuke says, I love buying at card shows, hundreds of great friends and dealers, and it's fun catching up with them at a show. Double D. Dylan says, a lot of work, but great interactions with people. And there were a couple more. I don't know. I had Collins. I thought I had Collins' comment here, but there were some other comments too, Gordy, about Collins' comment. Colin Murray's was about, at a card show, you get to inspect the card with your own two eyes in hand. That's a huge benefit to card show purchasing. So, I mean, I don't know if you want to say anything about that.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, being able to hold the card physically in your hand. I love the one guy's comment, like, nothing like a handshake deal. Let me tell you, I love it when I close a deal and shake you guys' hand. That is like the most fun thing ever. So maybe I misspoke a little bit. It can be fun for sure. It's not always not fun buying at card shows, but I think the social nature to it can kind of be a little bit of a letdown. I remember when I completed my 54 top set, I bought it at this show. I bought it from a vintage dealer. And I told the guy, I'm like, that just finished my set. Like, this random Willie Miranda card, whatever it was, like, I just finished my first ever set. And this guy could not have cared less, man. I took a selfie with the guy. I could probably find the selfie. I was like, dude, I got to take a picture with you. And this guy was like, get away from me, kid. And I was thinking to myself, when I was talking about this example, if I dropped in my live show, like, that was the last card to complete my 54 top set, there'd be so many guys in there like clapping it up, like, dude, congrats, that's sick. And I remember when I realized that I really liked this a few years ago. I'm like best friends with the same guys that I've been best friends with since I was 10 years old. They don't care about baseball cards. So when I go to tell them, I know they don't care. My wife will listen to it a decent amount, but she's not like she's collecting.
Yeah.
But so when you have this tribe of people that get what you're feeling and are cheering you on, man, it's awesome. And sometimes, like, I personally go to those card shows alone most of the time. Like, I don't have like somebody that I'm traveling to shows with. So that's what I'm talking about. That social piece is awesome. I love it.
It is. I mean, listen, I think you've built yourself a great community. It sounds like it's not an in-person community, but it doesn't take much away from the in-person experience. And it's terrible that that guy who completed your set for you wasn't celebrating with you. Like, you buy a card from me at a card show and it completes, you're like, we're celebrating, like, I'm loving it for you. I think not all dealers get it, and some are much more transactional, and some are there to meet people and have fun. Double D Dylan says, love it, Gordy, getting deep and passionate. Yankees fan says, we'll be signing up and watching Gordy. Very nice. Jeff's card journey. Gordy, ever do vintage basketball or football? He does. And J Mac, here's a hot take from J Max. Hot take: vintage is boring and centered around a dying sport. World Series has only averaged more than 20 million viewers once. since 2005. Josh, what do you say to this? What do you say?
Well, first, 2005 was a fantastic year. Second of all, it is absolutely not a dying sport. I mean, it's extremely popular. It's, maybe basketball gets more viewers, but no, baseball is not going anywhere.
Yeah. And I was listening to some, a sports business radio show. It comes on once a week here. I know the guy that does the show. It's a Canada-wide broadcast. Tom Mayanek is his name, does it. And he was saying some things about just how baseball is like doing very well right now. And there's superstars again. I mean, I didn't realize how good Paul Skeens was until I was listening today to just how he's like a 1.7 ERA in 10 games, but he's only won 1 because he has no run support. Like, there are some superstars, but it doesn't mean they're going to win. And of course, what Aaron Judge is doing. Stuke says, so many dealers would celebrate with you, Gordy. There are those that are there for the money too, like you mentioned. I think I completely agree. Like, I've had so many great experiences at card shows. I love dealing at card shows. I know it can be a little bit stressful, especially if you are more introverted, or you don't like to negotiate. It can be tougher, So there's all that for sure. Mosaic Mind says, Josh mentioned that for basketball, Michael Jordan is the Babe Ruth of his era. His appeal will be transcendent. I agree. Victory Investments Sean says, the author of Chasing Jackie Robinson, check it out on Amazon, says baseball sells more tickets than any pro sport each year, and it's not even close. I wonder on a per game basis, though. And then let's see. Pitchers are on fire, says Ziggy. Robert Scott says collecting vintage is collecting history, which, couldn't agree more. Turpin Forster says, I don't like Paul Skeens' attitude. Dude never seems happy. Never wins. That might be why. It's hard to be happy when you're never winning, regardless of how good you are. Jeff's Card Journey says, current MLB has a ton of really exciting players I watch every day. David calls out Bellinger. Okay. Josh, if you want to share any more thoughts, we're gonna do a guest switch here. Gordy, we're gonna come back to you in a sec. But Josh, any sort of closing comments on the Gordy Bonker segment of the show tonight?
Gordy, I love what you're doing. It's cool. I just signed up for your TikTok and Instagram as we were on the show just now, so I'll definitely watch tomorrow. I have a question though. What's behind you and that frame piece next to the cards? What is that? It's very interesting.
This here?
Yeah.
This is artwork done by Dick Perez, who was the official artist of Baseball Hall of Fame.
Awesome.
I was the social media manager helping out. About a year, I was helping out with the director of the film, Mark Evans. It just came out, so if you guys want to check it out, thediamondkingmovie.com. Mark, the director, gave me this. It's Jeter against the Phillies in the 2009 World Series that Dick painted. I'm a big Yankees fan, so
cool.
Pretty cool artwork. Yeah.
All right, Gordy. Well, listen, this has been great. I'm glad you came on. The chat really enjoyed you tonight, and you're bringing a different perspective and approach to vintage, to online selling. I really hope, especially after the episode that we did here last week, which maybe you want to go watch part of it. I really hope that by doing it the way you're doing it, that you can maybe blaze a trail for other people to sell online in live selling platforms, in a healthy way that doesn't feed the gamble and the addiction. And because that's something that we're not crazy about in the hobby. So to put it lightly. So, kudos to you for, I guess, doing it right. If you are, and I don't know exactly, but it seems like you are right, or at least a lot better. I don't know what right is, but a lot better than so many others are doing it. So kudos to you. And it's great to have you on here. It's overdue. So thank you, Gordy.
Yeah, man. Jeremy, thank you again so much for having me. Thanks for building this platform up and educating, teaching people. There's a lot of people that listen to you, man. If it's a podcast after this gets published, people listening on YouTube, and there's a lot of people that are getting better because of what you're doing. So you're respecting their time, and you're building up the hobby, doing great things. So appreciate it. Thank you. For anybody that wants to stay connected with me, I'll just, if I could, Jeremy, just check me out at Bonkers Cards on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube. And then my newsletter, I write weekly content about what's happening in the hobby on my newsletter. You can check it out at bonkerscards.substack.com. I love Substack. It's a great place for writers. I love writing. It's kind of been a foundational point of my career is writing. So check it out on the newsletter as well. But appreciate the time, Jeremy.
I'm a subscriber. Appreciate it, Gordy. Thanks for joining. We'll be in touch. Are you going to be at the National?
Absolutely.
All
We'll
right.
see you there. Okay,
Awesome.
we'll see you there, pal.
See
Take
ya.
care. Thank you. All right. Well, that was Gordy Bonker, everybody. That was a fun segment, I must say. Josh, you enjoy that?
I love that. It was cool. I'm gonna check them out tomorrow night and see what I can spend my money on. So it looked awesome. Yeah.
There you go. There you go.
So.
J Max here. Baseball has the most games, so yeah, they sell the most tickets. Duh. Yeah. A lot of thanks coming in for Gordy. There was one more comment that I wanted to someone. Oh, right here. No, not this one. Mosaic Mind says NFL is by far the number one sport in America. Why aren't football cards by far the number one in the hobby? Right, Josh?
I hope someone we know is not watching this.
He's probably watching. He's probably watching.
That's probably him.
Right.
Football cards are very. I'm going to get on my soapbox here. Vintage football is extremely popular, and pre NFL football is really popular. So,
good.
That's my.
All right. Well, let's go. Let's get on to the next part of the show, guys. We're gonna bring Evan Parker. He is a co-founder of the hobby collecting social platform Mantel, Mantel. I'm sure a lot of you have seen them. They're making waves. Evan, are you ready to join us? Give me a thumbs up if you are. He is. Let's bring him on. Evan Parker. Hey, welcome to Sports Cards Live. Hey, is there any way we can get you in the middle of the screen by chance?
I'm just leaning. Which way do I have to go? All right.
How are you, Evan? Welcome.
I'm
to the
good.
show,
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. It's good to see you. You and I, we connected, I don't know, feels like a couple years ago by now when you had started launching Mantel. So for anybody who doesn't know, let's hear a couple things from you. Let's start with, are you a collector? Where are you located? What do you love to collect? And then tell us a little bit about Mantel. But let's start with you yourself, Evan.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm based in LA. I am a lifelong collector. Cards, like everybody else who's probably watching and listening right now. Probably the same background, right? It's just a sports junkie. And it was my easiest way to stay connected to sports when I was a kid. And that continued throughout my life. As you can see behind me, though, I collect a lot of random stuff. So, I've got stock certificates back there. I've got toys. I'm the kind of guy that sees something that gets me excited and I try to go when I can grab it. And I probably have a less focused collecting kind of view than a lot of people. I grab what makes me happy. And I don't sell. So I'm somebody who I buy specifically because it's something that I want to own, and I do my best. I'm not always successful, but I do my best to grab things that I hope I never get sick of, and I hope I never sour on.
Yeah, right on. I love that you're kind of all over the place. A lot of people are, and it's nice to have a wide variety of interests. It keeps the opportunity. It can work both ways, right? I remember I was out for dinner at a restaurant recently with my mother, and the family was out for dinner, and it was a huge menu. And she was like, this menu's too big. Sometimes the menu can be too big, and sometimes it's like, oh my God, I want 18 different things on 5 different pages here. How do you kind of manage that when you do have such a diverse set of interests?
The truth is, I don't care if there's too many, because there's always something that gets me excited. And so I never had even thought of stock certificates being something that would be interesting to me until a buddy of mine mentioned it a year and a half ago. And I have 5. I don't have this massive collection. I don't go out and say that like this, I'm an expert in the thing, but I saw a couple that I really liked and that had a connection to me. So I've got a 1926 Converse stock certificate signed by the man who created Converse, Marquise Converse himself. That to me is really cool. And so I have that in my collection. I have a Planet Hollywood one because I grew up, with that as being this like really fun restaurant that you always looked at, and the food wasn't good. Nothing about it made sense, even at the time. But so I grab things that bring me joy. And if somebody came into my house and looked at all the things behind me, I don't think that they'd see a theme other than this is all stuff that Evan likes. And that to me is the thing that matters the most. Like you get a pretty good picture of who I am, things I'm passionate about. You'll know where I went, where I went to school, where I grew up, the sports that I like, the athletes that I care about, the brands I support, just by looking at the shelves behind me. And to me, I know everybody collects different. That's why I was excited about the topic of does the hobby suck or do you? Because I think if you collect the way that you want to, the way that it brings you joy, the hobby doesn't suck because the hobby is your own. It's the way that you create it, the way that you make it, and the way that other people do it should have zero bearing on your own enjoyment of the things that you love.
Mic drop, show over. Good night, everybody. Forgive me, because I think that was the way you ended that was wonderful. And forgive me for not introducing you to my emergency backup co-host, Joshua Adams. Josh, I don't say Evan.
Evan, nice to meet you. Congratulations. I hear you have a newborn. So
8 days old. I saw Alex. I'm up. I'm in LA, so it's not that late, but I'm also up all the damn time now. So
absolutely.
I told Jeremy, if you want me on at 4 a.m., I'm probably going to be
you'll be up, right?
Yeah, no, I was just going to get to that too. So thanks, Josh. Yeah, congratulations to you on your first child as well.
First child, little girl, little Lucy.
Congratulations. That's awesome. Are you going to be coming down to the National in a few weeks?
I will be. I'll probably be there for 1 day. I have to go.
Will your wife let you back into the house when you get home?
I'm just hoping I can fly out there between naps and maybe nobody will even notice that I was gone.
Right. Oh, look at this. Midlife Greg. My daughter's name is Lucy too. So
hey, all right. Love it.
There you go. There you go. That's great. So okay. So I love it. You collect a wide range of things. If I've got a big wall next to me, it's like, I don't know, 12 feet tall or so, and got a ton of, I collect a bunch of different things too, but I don't actively collect them much. Yeah. I'm pretty happy. My shelves are full, but I hear what you're saying. It resonates with me, Evan. And okay, so it's good to have you here on the show. Tell us a little bit about Mantel, because I joined Mantel at least a year ago. I've gone through some spurts of being active here and there, and then kind of not going on, then being active a little bit again. I want to do two things here. First, I want you to obviously explain to people who may not know what Mantel is and how it was incepted. But before you do that, tell me what I'm missing by not being on there every single day.
It's a social platform that is about nothing other than collecting. And it's just people all day who are posting about the things that they love. And it's positive. It's shockingly positive. And I know that some of that is because we're still young and that the trolls haven't found us. Or they find us and they get sick of it because everybody's too nice and they say, hey, this is not where I want to go spend my time, and they leave and go elsewhere. But if you scroll the feed, you're going to see people who are sharing things that are important to them, that they care about, the way that they collect, asking questions, interacting with people in ways that I just don't think you see much in social media. And that's, Jeremy, a lot of why we built it. I think, we had this idea that the way that social networks are developing, the algorithm is driving way more of the content that you see every day. And so you're seeing what the team at X or Instagram or TikTok wants you to see. There's no way to avoid the topics that you don't want to focus on. And if, sometimes I really want to know what's going on in the news, what's happening in politics, what's happening, in across the globe. Twitter gives me a lot of that information, and it's good for that. But if I just want to relax and have fun and not be triggered by something that's happening, around the world, I can't go on Twitter. It's a terrible place for me because all I'm going to see is stuff that is not about the thing that I went there for. And I love that we've been able to build Mantel, and you're not going to see any posts about what's happening in the war, what's happening in global health or with tariffs or anything like that. It's just about collecting, and everybody who's on it shares the same. We all collect differently, but we share that same ethos at the end of the day. We're all collectors, and that's the thing that brings us together. And I know community is a word that gets thrown around a lot in this hobby and everywhere else, but that's truly what we're trying to build. We're trying to build a place where people can go and say, all I want to do right now is show off this thing that I just bought, or ask a question to somebody who knows something that I don't know, or just see what other people are excited about so I can learn and I can get better at this thing or have more fun at this thing that I love. And if you go to Mantel, you're going to have that experience 100% of the time.
Yeah, I think that's a good layout for what you're doing there. And the name, let's talk about the name. Mantel means a couple things to me.
Right.
First of all, I think a mantle, and I think a Mickey Mantle. What were you guys thinking? Are you part of the team that named it?
Yeah, no, it was me. So, and that's exactly why we spent a lot of time trying to figure out what the right name was going to be. And I wanted to come up with something that had more than one connection. Mantel's not just for cards. So we have people who are on the platform who are posting about stamps and comic books and watches and other things. The goal is to create something. Right now, I would say it's 80% cards. And out of those 80% cards, it's 90% of those posts are about sports. But if you're asking me where I want this thing to be in a year or 5 years from now, I want people who are going to be on posting about things that have nothing to do with sports, nothing to do with cards. And so we didn't want to have a name that was solely sports based, because I thought, if you are a comic book collector and you have and it's called, the sports card app or whatever, you're not going to go to that. That's just not going to be interesting to you. So can we come up with something that has resonance in sports, but also has a broader meaning? And one day Mantel sort of just smacked me in the face. The name that I had before that, and we couldn't get it cleared for legal reasons, I wanted to call it Honus. And that doesn't really work for the non-sports part. But I just thought, if you kind of like dial back what Mantel is, to me at least, and this is when I was the only employee. So what Mantel was to me at the time was the only thing that Mantel meant to anybody else. We wanted to create something that got to the essence of why we all collect, which is that emotion and the stories behind it. And if you think about, and I know some people on here are probably going to disagree with me, because everybody here knows a lot about sports, and I wish Gordy was still on to talk about it from a vintage standpoint. But you think about Honus Wagner and what he means. Most people know the Wagner, name because of the card. Nobody's seen him play who's alive today. Nobody saw video of him playing. We don't have that many photos of him. Most people don't even know what his position was, his stats, anything like that. Yes, he's a Hall of Famer, great player, but I would argue that the average sports fan today knows about him because of this card. And it's not the most rare card that ever existed. He wasn't the best player even in that set, right? If you think about all the guys that were in T206, he's not even the best player necessarily. So why is that card the card? The story behind it, right? Like there's intrigue. The community came together and they said, this is the one, because either he wanted his name taken out of it because he was the first guy to think about NIL, or he had issues with cigarettes and didn't want to have his name associated. But whichever reason it was, Honus Wagner said, take my card out of that set. There aren't a lot of them. It got a lot of intrigue all the way back in the early 1900s. And that's carried to now 125 years plus later, or 120, years later, we're still talking about it. And so, long-winded way to say, I thought about it as like, it's a great way to say what Mantel is. It's about the community coming together and saying, this is what we care about because of the story behind it. But of course, Honus is a very unique name, and you can't clear that. We were going to get sued by probably by the estate. So, and thank you, Goat, for that comment. So we tried to come up with a different name, and Mantel made sense to me for that same sort of reason, that if it's not the Wagner, it's the 52 Mantel as one of the biggest cards in the sports space. And because it has that double meaning with the Mantel where you put the things that matter the most to you in your life, it felt like it could work for comic books. It could work for watches or anything else you collect, but it clearly could work for sports. I know it can be confusing to people because they see it and they see how it's spelled and they say, hey, you spelled it wrong. We spelled it the way that it is spelled from the Mantel behind you. And also it means that Mickey's family is not going to sue us because we didn't spell it the same way.
Right. Oh, no, I find it interesting. And I think it's a cool name. I think it's cool. Alex said it kind of neat, where he said, when I hear it, I think about showing my collection on my mantle. And I know he's kind of playing into the name, yeah. but that's cool.
Exactly. That's why we did it that way. And I know I see a lot of comments about Honus Wagner. I'm not saying he wasn't a great player. I knew everybody on here would know the position he played, the team he played for.
I think what you're saying, Evan, is that everyone's heard of Ty Cobb. Not everyone has heard of Honus. You've heard of Ty Cobb without the T206 set. A lot of people needed that to hear about Honus Wagner. That's true.
Yeah.
I don't think you can really dispute that. Maybe you can in certain regions, like in Pittsburgh, but you can't really dispute that on a more macro sort of level.
Absolutely.
So I hear what you're saying. Now, okay. Evan, or that was when Alex made the comment, you're up late since you got your newborn. Congrats, brother. Very nice. J Max said, dude went to the cheesecake factory when I was talking about ordering food. I love the cheesecake factory. Actually, we don't have one here where I live in Canada. I don't know if there's any in the country, but I love eating there when I'm in the States. Good evening, Eddie's Cardboard Chaos. Appreciate you joining us tonight. Now, I have a couple questions for you that I want to ask. And the first one is the growth. I mean, it's got to be challenging to launch a new online community for collectors when you are up against the giants of the Facebooks, the YouTubes, the Twitters, the TikToks and Instagrams? I mean, these are absolute behemoths. Now, I know you said this is where you come. You're only going to get what you're looking for, which is the collectibles. You're not going to get all of the other stuff like you get on Twitter, and the algorithm loves to put other things into your feed. I know that. You can do some curating on Instagram better. Of course, on YouTube, you can only subscribe to channels you want to watch. What has it been like? I mean, how has the launch been? When did you launch, and how is it going? Was it going as fast as you thought it would, slower than you thought it would? Like, I'm curious how it's going, because I have to think it's challenging. What can you tell us?
It's way harder than I expected it would be, and I expected it was going to be hard. We launched the beta at the end of 23 on the web, just a website, and then in April, we launched April of last year, so a year ago or so, we launched the app. And the app every day gets a little bit better. I would say right now it's like a 6 out of 10 in terms of where we want it to go. But it was important to us to launch as quickly as we could and get feedback from people. You'll see, even if you go right now, we had an update 2 days ago. And so you'll see comments from people right there saying, can you add this? Or what about this? And that's been really valuable for us to be able to get things out quickly that are mediocre, so people can tell us what we can make that could be better, or what they're looking for that's different. But you said it, Jeremy, it is really, really hard to compete with Instagram and Facebook and blowout forums and things of that nature. I mean, they all have first mover advantage. Blowout's been around for 15, 20 years. So a lot of people are on that. Facebook, obviously, since 2005, and Instagram and Twitter have been around for 15 plus years. People are reticent to change. And when it comes to, I think, tech, the hobby is not the first mover, right? This is not I believe, after having been in it myself and now working in it, if you spend your time collecting and thinking about these things that are rooted in nostalgia, you're not the early adopter necessarily. Certainly people are, but this isn't sneakers or NFTs where people want the newest thing. I think people are relatively comfortable being in places that they've been in forever, because that's where their friends are, that's what they're comfortable with, and that's what we know, where they know. So we're spending every single day trying to combat that and get people to come on and interact. And I know it from you, Jeremy. You could go on Instagram and you could be talking to thousands of people. If you came on to Mantel, you wouldn't have that nearly the same number of followers. You wouldn't have the same reputation. You'd kind of have to be starting from scratch. And it's hard to convince somebody to come and do something new and frankly help me build my company, right? It's not your responsibility to do that. But if people don't come on early and help us grow, it won't be around in 5 years. And the question that I ask, and that people have to ask themselves, do you want Mantel to succeed? If the answer is no, or I don't care, then it's not, you don't worry about it. If the answer is yes, then we need people to be on every day and interacting with us, because that's the only way that we're going to survive. But we're doing our best to create things that we believe in, that we wish that the other social networks had. And we're doing our best to listen to the community and figure out, like, what is it that you want? What don't you like about these other places? What features are missing? We'll go build it for you. We'll like, if you say, hey, this is something that really matters to me, then like, all right, we'll see what we can do about it. Because this doesn't exist if people aren't going to love it and people don't want to interact.
So you've talked about us. Who's the us? Who are your co-founders?
So I was hired for this by Alexis Ohanian, who created Reddit, and Brent Montgomery, who created Pawn Stars and the Golden Auctions TV show. And so the two of them had an idea before I was a part of it, before I knew either of them, about trying to create a content and community platform within the collectible space. And I was put in touch with them back in 2023, and Mantel came out of that. It wasn't much of an idea at the time. It was like, we should do something in this space. Let's figure out what it is. Those guys have full-time jobs, very busy. And so, they're involved, but not on a day-to-day basis. And then I've been able to hire 2 full-timers in the last, year and a half. So it's a small team, not a lot of us doing it, but it's all through passion. We're really doing our best to build something that we hope can succeed. And, we're going to work as hard as we possibly can to make this work. I hope that it does. I've certainly put a lot of my life aside to make this thing happen, but we need to make sure, it has to be something that people want. And if it's not, then we understand it's not going to be for everybody.
Josh, I want you to think about a question or two that you might have for Evan. I have another one for you, Evan, which is monetization. Like there are investors. what is the plan for this thing to bring the investors a return on their investment? You mentioned Alex Ohanian, who founded Reddit, and Montgomery from the reality shows. But I can't imagine they're doing this just for their own hobby. Maybe they are, and they don't care if it's successful. I have to think they are. But what are the plans? How is this thing going to make money?
Yeah, and we need to make money. We made $0 so far. We haven't tried to, so that's not a failing yet. If you have me on in a year and I say we've made $0, that'll be a failing. So right now, we're building. You can see we have groups on the platform, so you can have a group about baseball cards or hockey cards or whatever. We're going to be creating private groups. So Jeremy, if you wanted to have your private group that people, like Ryan's cards on Discord or something like that,
like a Discord, like a private Discord on like a Mantel instead of a Discord.
Right. So, we think that one of the benefits of that is that discoverability on our platform is easier. Discord is a closed community. You go into one room and you're kind of locked in that space. But if you're on Mantel, you're seeing all the other things that are collectibles based, so you can hop around and go from group to group. And so could we create one with somebody who had influence and had an audience that wanted to say, my exclusive content is going to go here, or this is a trade group and you can join, but it's $3 a month, $5 a month, $15 a month, whatever, something like that. We don't have any ads on the platform. At some point, we probably will. That'll be based more on us having a big enough audience that it makes sense for us to go that route. So ads could be part of it. And also, we're not planning on competing with eBay or Fanatics Collect. It's just the marketplace world is so cutthroat and difficult.
I want to add one more thing just for the people listening. Like, guys, and I said to Evan when we were planning, I said, listen, this isn't going to be an infomercial for Mantel. We got to talk hobby. So I want everyone in the chat to know if whether you are going to give Mantel a chance or not. We're going to get to some hobby topics in just a minute. But I do want to give Evan a chance to, I want people to succeed when they try a new business. If they're doing it right and they have good intentions and they're not taking advantage of people, I want them to succeed. I'd like to see it. So I wanted to give them a chance to do that. I think it's nice to help inform people what's going on, what some of the companies are that are trying to find their way and build a business. But I want to learn a bit about the business and ask those kinds of questions. So I appreciate you, Evan, answering the monetization question, kind of who's behind Mantel altogether. And then I want to just share a comment that I agree with that Ziggy No just put up. He says, I applaud you on the startup. We all learn from your attempt, whether you succeed or fail. And that's just it. Like, these guys you're giving it a go. And then what I'm taking away too is that, you think about Discord and Patreon and all these other places that several content creators have built communities. And I haven't myself, but I know many that have, and they seem to be wonderful places for a lot of these people. I think they are supported by the app as well. So does Mantel have an app to go along with the website?
So we have an app. It's on iOS and it's on in the Google Store. Everything is free. So, I would, if you're interested, I'd grab a username now while your name is probably still available, and get on and just test it out. And you can reach out to the team and tell us the things that you like and that you don't like. If it's not for you, there's no hard sell here. I'm not going to say you got to get on and you got to try it out. It's not going to be for everybody. And I really want people who are on it to love it, right? Like, I'm not trying to convince somebody at gunpoint, you got to love this thing, because that's not going to be the user who's going to be happy and contribute to the fact that this is a really positive community, that nobody's yelling at each other and that nobody's, trolling or scamming. So that's pretty important to us. But I hope that people give it a shot. Look, the hobby, I think, needs innovation. And I know that sometimes can be a dirty word in this space, to talk about innovation. But I think that the hobby, for this thing to last forever, we have to keep pushing the envelope, trying new things. That doesn't mean everything that we try to do from an innovation standpoint is good or will work. But it's good that people are going to be taking risks and trying things. And I applaud a lot of the startups in this space that are doing things differently, and some are going to survive, some are going to fail, some will partner up together, some will forget about tomorrow, and some might be the next big thing. But I think right now, a lot of the companies that are doing big business in the hobby are not of the hobby, they're not from the hobby, right? They're, it's like Whatnot and companies like that are saying, we're going to build something really good, and we're going to come into your world, and we're going to mine you for all your money and all your people, but we're not going to care specifically about cards or collectibles. It's just one of the thousands of things that we do. for us, this is the only thing that we do. So, I hope that is something that people look at and say, all right, like I'm going to give these guys a try because they're at least doing something in my space for my space. And I hope that it works.
Good. Seems like it's driven by some passion here as well, and people who want to just be involved. Josh, do you have any comments, questions you want to ask Evan about Mantel? And I was just going to say there was a question about the on Mantel aspect. We'll come back to that in a moment. But Josh, what do you think?
Yeah, so it seems cool. So I guess the whole plan is it's like a social media thing without all the extra noise, which is great. Because if I want to go on like Twitter and look at cards, you got to sift through 1,000 other crazy things about whatever. Mm-hmm. So it sounds like a great idea. This hobby sometimes seems pretty reluctant to change, resistant to trying new things, right, Jeremy? I mean, the collector, sometimes we find something we like and we're really stubborn. How do we get out of that? Like, what's the plan for like getting people over?
And there's also a lot of gatekeeping. I think there's a lot of like, where were you before you're coming in to make money? Are you really a collector? I've never been judged more for the things that I have behind me of like, is this legit? Did he just go and pick all these things up yesterday so he could have a background that makes him seem like a collector so he could swindle us out of all of our money? So I feel like I'm constantly having to prove not just that this is a good business, but I'm somebody who belongs and I'm somebody who's part of this community.
Are you getting tired of that, Evan?
To do that? Yeah.
Are you getting tired of that? I can imagine you're dealing with that regularly. I mean, and you've had some setups at various shows and that. Mm-hmm. You're out there. I mean, we've met in person a couple times at events, National Fanatics Fest last year, etc. Mm-hmm. Are you getting tired of having to kind of try to convince people that you're an actual collector?
I'm not, because I get to spend my day on the platform where I just get to talk about the things that I love, and nobody who's on Mantel is questioning the things that I love about this world, because they see the post, they see what I just picked up and the things that mean something to me. Those people have already bought in that you're a collector. I mean, when you're meeting new people outside of Mantel. I understand the question though. I think that the hobby, for better or for worse, COVID, a lot of new blood came in. And not everybody came in for the right reasons. I think people saw that this was a potential $1 billion opportunity to jump in at that time. And so, like anything else, there's a dollar sign over there. I'm going to go to it. And then if this doesn't work, I'm going to just flitter away to the next thing, crypto or NFTs or whatever it is. And I think that there are a lot of people in the hobby who felt burned by that. And so anybody new who's coming in, they look at it that way. And, the thing I always laugh about is that I'm not public on social media aside from Mantel. I don't post about the things that are happening in my life. So there's a lot of questions of where was I at this point? Why wasn't I posting about these things before? It's because that's not what I do. You're not going to see that kind of stuff from me. And so, and from the guys on the team, I don't feel like we have to prove who we are to other people, but it does help when you understand the things that I love. I'm building, I don't do much that I would call true PC, because as I said, I just get the things that I love. But I'm right now trying to get autograph cards of sports broadcasters I went to journalism school. I thought I was going to be a journalist. I worked for The Athletic for a number of years. So I collect, I got like Chick Hearn and Woj and all these guys' autograph cards. These things aren't worth anything for the most part. They're not something that like this is.
That's okay.
Exactly. And if I was faking it, this would be such a weird way to fake it. Like the way that I've done it, this is me. This is the stuff that I really love. And the thing I love about going on Mantel is I can post about it and I find other people who are like, hey, have you seen this set? Or I've got this card, or have you thought about this? Or that's totally weird or whatever. And every day I get kind of pushed in different directions by the things that other people get excited about, because I'm really curious by nature. I get excited about a lot of stuff. And I love having a community that every day I see things. I'm like, even if it's not for me, I love that you love that.
Yeah. All right. We're going to bring Chris Hoge on in just a couple minutes, guys. But before we do, I want to run through some comments or some questions for you, Evan.
Great.
I want you to keep these answers quick. Okay.
Yep.
So first one, is Mantel also a place to talk sports in general, not just sports cards? Evan?
Yeah, we're not policing it. If you want to talk about sports, I think go for it. But a lot of it is about collecting at the end of the day.
Ziggy No said, what is something on Mantel you can't find anywhere else? What is the differentiator?
I think it's you can find a lot of this stuff elsewhere, but you can't find a place that's concentrated that's just about this stuff. And I think, and I know this just sounds like lip service, but it's positive. Nobody's going to tell you the thing that you like is bad or that you're an idiot for loving it. And for a lot of people, they're scared to post on other platforms because of the backlash. You don't get that on Mantel.
GC says, did they drop the on from the name? Because the website is actually onmantel.com. He could have sworn it was called On Mantel when it first came out. What's happening with that?
It's always been Mantel, but we couldn't get the URL or the Instagram handle of just Mantel, so we had to throw on in there. But Mantel is the name of the company. On Mantel is what you'll see from a handle standpoint elsewhere, though.
You know what? As far as like having your name and wishing you could get the website and the handles elsewhere, and then having to sort of settle for some sort of other name or a compromise. On Mantel's a pretty good one. If you think,
Thank you.
I think it's a good. I think it's not a bad alternative. Not a
there's a bike shop in Germany that has Mantel, and they've been around too long. We would have had to buy an entire bike business in order to get the URL.
Yankees fan said, this is why this show is so good. Always learning new people and companies. Thank you, Yankees fan. Dan Zvinder says, Jeremy, you very much have a community. SCL is a community. Dan, I appreciate that. And I recognize that. I think what I was thinking was I don't have a Discord community or a Patreon. I haven't built those communities on those platforms, but I'm very grateful for this YouTube community for sure, Dan. And thank you for pointing that out. Triple V says, you got to have thick skin if you try to work in this hobby, especially with all the drama and issues surrounding the modern space. Yeah, well said. Very true. Yankees fan says startups are hard no matter what industry. It will take a lot of time to get traction on a new platform. But hey, you've taken some time. You'll put it in. All right. Thank you for introducing us. For those who weren't aware of it, to Mantel, Evan. I wish you well. We've had interactions over the last year and a half, 2 years, since your beta launch, I guess, at the end of 2023. So you've always been a really friendly and nice and patient, and just great to talk to. He's a good guy. From what I can tell, he's a good guy. So, like Vintage says, respect the hustle. Yeah, I respect it, and I wish you guys well, Evan. So
I appreciate that.
With that, we can switch the focus. You also wanted to talk a bit about the whole what's going on in the hobby, and we talked about it at the top of the show. Josh and I did before Gordy came on. So let's bring Chris on too. We can talk about that. We'll see what Chris often brings a topic. Chris, let's see those thumbs.
I'm just joking. I'm ready.
How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Oh, I'm a little bit loud here.
You're good.
Hi, Chris.
Oh, fancy new mic, huh?
Thank you. Yeah, just look at this. Don't look how professional I am. Thank you. Okay.
Chris, do you know Evan? Evan, do you know Chris? If you don't, say hello.
I know of Evan for sure.
Social stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Twitter connected. How about that? And I still call it Twitter. I don't go to X. I don't call it X.
Are you familiar with the Mantel platform, Chris?
And I still call it On Mantel. Shout out GC.
So you're familiar with it then?
I am. I just was browsing it again right now as I was listening to Evan talk about it, and there's a lot of activity over there. There are a lot of posts and a lot of posts, a lot of groups. Yeah, I went in. One of the first groups I saw was J Mojo Sports Group. It had over 1,200 members. I mean, that's
impressive.
A big group.
little by little.
It's pretty
Check
cool.
I call it Stacking Pennies.
Stacking Pennies podcast. Good stuff. All right. Well, Chris, good to have you. Have you been tuned in from the launch tonight?
Of course.
Any thoughts on the Gordy Bonker segment?
What a name.
I know.
What a name. He was blessed.
Yeah.
He was blessed with that name. Don't ever ask me my favorite vintage bands. It'll be wildly disappointing.
You were in the music business.
I was. So I inherited a Bruce Springsteen fandom from my dad, but that's about as far as it goes.
Nice. Okay. Did you enjoy the segment?
Of course. Yeah. No, it's a great segment, man. And it's also a testament to the different ways that breaking can happen. I think a set break, a complete set break of a fully graded set is a really interesting product that maybe speaks to some of the different types of offerings and maybe a lower level risk. And like you were talking about, Jeremy, a less pressure filled type of environment. I don't think that people who are buying into a 50 whatever top set break are in there to get nukes or whatever the kids are calling these big hits these days.
I'm
dog
also
race.
impressed that he's able to do it on his own platform. You know, so much of this you have to kind of have the megaphone of Fanatics Live or whatnot or whatever, and to build your own platform and do that, you know, the people who are going there must truly love what he's doing and appreciate him for him.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's cool, man. It's cool. You know, here's this. I'll just fire off this thought, especially because it pertains to everybody on this panel except Adams. No offense, Adams.
It's okay.
Well, don't say that yet. You don't know what's coming. A professionalizing in this space is full time. People who are working in this industry full time. It's something that that I just want to acknowledge and appreciate. It's important. It helps build up our industry with hardworking people with different ideas. You know, Jeremy, the content creation part in particular, and On Mantel is a big part of content creation too. And Josh's 90s auction creates content too. But Josh still is splitting his time among different ventures. But the content creation and people giving me, as a fan of this space, things to listen to, things to think about constantly, inspiration, collecting stories. It's really, really underrated. And I'm glad that we have people doing it.
Yeah.
Amen.
As am I. It's you know, I'm always every night, just about every night, I leave here and I go walking, and first thing I do is I go to the podcast app and I pick out what I'm going to listen to as I'm walking. I see my own podcast on there because, of course, I subscribe to myself, you know, but I don't ever listen to this podcast. I live it. I don't listen to it, but I do look for other ones to listen to, and I'm grateful. And when there's a night where there's nothing I'm really interested in, none of the topics interest me, or I've just exhausted everything, I'm disappointed, you know. And then I can go to the YouTube app and I can find content there. And this is obviously only listening. I'm not watching. I'm not reading. It's just listening. And I find myself grateful, just like I was that very first time, Chris, when I found the House of Jordans podcast, that I could find something to listen to while I was outside getting my fresh air in. So, yeah, well said, Chris. Appreciate that comment. Now, before we maybe get to a topic that you might have brought, Chris, I don't even know if you did, but if you did, I want to go back to what Evan mentioned to me when we were chatting earlier this week, because he did have some thoughts about, you know, the post that I made on Instagram earlier this week. And I brought it up at the beginning of the show, but I'm sure we've had people in and out tonight. So I'll put it up again for everyone just to set the context, and we can you can tell us what was going through your mind, Evan. But again, some of you need to hear this today and every day. If the hobby feels like it sucks, maybe it's not the hobby. Maybe it's how you're doing it. Find your lane, your people, your purpose, collect with intention. And I will say, I stole that from Alex and Collectors MD. Well, I didn't steal it. I borrowed it, because collect with intention makes so much sense to me that I'm making it my own. Collect with intention, connect with collectors you respect. I mean, listen, that's not original, but those were my words. Do that and the hobby won't suck. So just to put it out there, I believe those comments. I believe that post to be a good way to live. Evan, you read that. What kind of went through your mind when you read it? And what are you thinking?
I mean, speaking my language, I say similar things all the time. At the end of the day, what are we doing? We're taking pieces of cardboard that have images of people playing children's games, essentially. And you know, we covet these things and we talk about them, we trade them. Like, this is something that if it doesn't bring you joy, easier, better ways to spend your time and your money. And I you know, I've been taken aback a little bit in this space, seeing how many people just seem to be constantly angry, triggered, upset about collecting, about the hobby space, about the way other people are doing it, the way other people think about it, what other companies are doing, and things like that. And I don't understand from my own perspective why you'd spend your time seeking out things that make you so angry, that you don't love. And I think that there's so much good in this space, and you're better off, at least in my view, trying to find the things that really bring you joy and the things that you love. And I think that, you know, to your point, Jeremy, does the hobby suck, or do you? If it only brings you, it only creates tension in your life, there's got to be a better thing for you to do with your time. And that's, at least for me, you know, I've, as I said, you know, I've gone up and down in the way that I collect. For a little while, I was trying to pick out prospects, and I was reading rankings for baseball and going out and buying a bunch of Dodgers guys. And I struck out on all of them. It didn't work. I've, I'm going to join a bunch of breaks and just test, I like at least try to figure out kind of, everybody's trying to find the way that they do it. And I've never been happier as a collector than I am today, because I no longer care about any of it. I don't get influenced by any of it. I'm just buying the things that I care about, the things that I love. And so I don't get triggered by the way anybody else does. If you are a flipper, if you're a breaker, if you're a content creator, if you're somebody who likes vintage or likes modern, none of that matters to me, because it's what you like. And if you like it, then I'm happy for you. I don't have to like it. And I wish that the people in the hobby, more people in the hobby, just thought about this as being something that needs to bring joy. And if it doesn't, go find a different hobby.
Yeah, I think that's well said. Now I have a few responses to that I'll share. You said, there really shouldn't be a reason to be upset if you do it your way. And then I think to myself, all right, I'm going to push back, but I'm not really pushing back. I'm just, creating discussion here. But are there any reasons for collectors to be upset? And I think that there are some legitimate reasons that people are upset, like the cost of wax is expensive, the lack of consistency in grading, shill bidding. Yeah. It's really a lot of the nefarious characters, and I'm not calling grading companies nefarious characters, because I'm transitioning that. It's the shill bidding, the ripping people off, the predatorial selling tactics on some platforms, that kind of thing. I think there are some reasons for people to be upset. And then we could say, yeah, but so just ignore it. But the thing is that this is a hobby and a community where there are so many people who are so damn passionate about this hobby and the community and trying to make it better for everyone as we go into the future. And I think that's why people do get upset about it. So I think if you're fortunate enough to where you can just say, you know what, I'm going to ignore all the noise, and maybe Mantel is a place where you want to get away from all the drama that exists on all the other, because there is drama on Instagram, Twitter X, YouTube, Facebook. They all have drama. You want to get away from it. Mantel might be the place to escape to when you want to get away from some of that, because it's hard to leave another community altogether. Totally. I think it can be, at least. So I think there are reasons. There are some legitimate reasons why people are upset, and I think it's driven by their passion for the space. All that said, though, I do think that some people do take it a little bit overboard, and then it does also get to the point where it's just for the clicks at one point. At a certain point, there's no longer any productive reason or productive benefit to being very negative about things in the hobby. And now you're just doing it to become, to get more followers, more clicks, and that sort of thing. So,
and I guess I'll clarify. I kind of separate the drama into two camps. There's the real legit drama of shill bidding, this is stuff that we all have money at stake in, or time, and people who are doing things that are nefarious or predatory, shady, that we should get mad about that all day. Companies that are taking advantage of people who aren't consistent. That is totally legitimate. And I never get mad if somebody's saying this thing happened and it shouldn't have happened in this way. I'm more talking about the people who seem to be aggrieved by the things that make other people happy, but don't make them happy. You pull a card and that card sucks, shouldn't be worth that much. What are you doing? You're wasting your money. There's a lot of that. If you go into people's Twitter comments and Instagram, you just see constant hate with no reasoning, right? Like it's just somebody else. And I saw somebody in the comments say it could be envy, it could be things like that. I think that is something that pops up a lot, where it seems like there's anger for the sake of anger. And that's the thing that I try to at least tune out and avoid. Plenty of stuff on Mantel is people who are debating, what's the best grading company? What do you think about this grade? What do you think about this topic? Whatever. There's plenty of those types of conversations. I look at that as debate. I look at the other stuff as negativity and drama, and the drama is the stuff that I try to avoid.
Yeah. I'm glad you clarified, especially because I just was looking at some comments here and I see Triple V said that, evidently you're missing the point. I don't think he missed the point, Triple V. I just don't think that we got deep enough into the discussion. I think it's clear that he doesn't miss the point. And sometimes we need to, ask the question to help the person get to that point. And plus, we're sharing the screen with 4 people. We're trying to share the time as well. So with that said, I'm going to stop talking and let's just go to you, Josh. You've been silent for a bit. What's going through your mind?
So, I think people get angry or frustrated because we're so passionate about this because we care so much about it, right? If you didn't care what was going on, you wouldn't really raise your blood pressure. With that being said, I think it's, you have to curate your collection, but I think you said earlier, curate your feed on social media, which is also, very important. So you can just really like focus on the people that collect, that you like, stay away from the stuff you don't. It's pretty simple. And you can always, turn off the phone whenever you want. So,
and spend our money at the places that we think are doing it right. And
right.
Don't spend your money. If you have an issue with the way a company grades, don't buy their slabs. Don't grade with them. If you don't like a marketplace, you don't like a creator. I think trying to we can vote with our wallets in some ways. And I think we've seen, Beckett being an example and some of these companies that are struggling today because they made missteps and they pissed people off. And so people said, okay, I'm not going to go there. I'm going to go somewhere else. I think sometimes we forget how much power we as a community have to sort of turn the hobby in a direction, in different directions by voting with our wallets.
Yep.
We can also vote with our attention, right? You can just unfollow, unsubscribe, block, do all these
Absolutely.
things. We curate our collections, like you said. We said already. Curate your feed. Curate what you're consuming, what content you are consuming, and it can be challenging at times too. But I want to come back, and Chris, I know you got some comments. We'll come to them in 1 second. I want to come back. I'm going to put the post up one more time though, guys, because I'm looking at it. I'm trying to pick holes in it, as other people did in the comments for sure. It had way more positive comments than it had kind of people pushing back at me for being the author of it. But what is, I really feel like when I say if the hobby if you're feeling like the hobby sucks, maybe it's not the hobby, maybe it's how you're doing it. I'm really talking to what you're collecting and how you're collecting versus the content, the drama, and all that. And if you are not happy with the results you're getting from buying wax or buying into breaks, maybe you want to go buy singles. If you're not happy buying singles and you want the variety and you want the gamble, you want the thrill, maybe you should be buying into breaks. I just think that there are so many different ways that you can be a participant and a hobbyist in this space that it's on you to change the hobby from sucking for yourself to making it not suck. Otherwise, get out of it. Literally. Like I'm not trying to shrink the hobby, but if you are not enjoying it, if it is not the place for you, get out of it. And then to layer onto that, if you are somebody who's having financial issues or addiction problems, now we've got Collectors MD with Alex, who's on last week, where you can go for support, which is a wonderful new addition to the whole landscape of this wonderful hobby. I think it's wonderful that if you do need help, you can get it. If you are running into financial relationship, those sorts of issues because of it. So, collecting with intention, how you want to collect what in a way that makes you happy, and it can evolve and change. And you might not get there tomorrow, but you can make your way there. I truly believe that, and connect with collectors and other hobbyists that you respect. Follow them, watch their shows, we'll listen to their podcasts, follow their story posts on Instagram, follow them on Mantel, all these different ways that you can do that. That's going to help enhance your hobby experience. I really believe that. And I do think if you do that, the hobby will not suck for you. Now, you may have times when, you get ripped off, or, the eBay authentication program doesn't work the way you want it to, or you buy a box of cards and you get nothing, or you buy into a break and you get skunked. Like there can be things that happen along the way that will be setbacks, I suppose, but you got to learn from those. And you've got to try to protect yourself, which you can do. If buying on eBay doesn't work for you, maybe you only buy at card shows, maybe you only buy at the LCS, maybe you save your money to go to the National, whatever it is. I just think that it's up to us. It's up to each individual person who is a participant in this hobby to make it work for you. I mean, Foul Ball is hilarious. He says, I'm not negative about the hobby for any clicks, but then he says here, everything sucks. I don't know if you're joking or not, Foul Ball, because you seem to love how you collect. and you tell us that every week, and I'm glad you do. It's really on each and every person. You have the power, guys. I think you do. Maybe if you don't, you got Collectors MD as some support, but you should be able to find a way. And if you can't, reach out and ask people. Send me a DM. Say, hey, I'll give you some advice. I've been doing this for 45 years. I'm happy to share some experience. Okay, enough. Chris, let's go to you and get your reactions to the last several minutes, please.
Yeah. Are we ready for this? Because I have a bit of a zag coming.
Sure.
Okay. So I like the way that the order rolled out here. I'm gonna make 3 points, or take this conversation into 3 different phases. The first one is that I think excellent advice has been given across the board here in terms of curating a positive hobby experience for yourself. Like our buddy Cajun Cardboard ends all of his YouTube videos with "stay positive in the hobby and peace." He's signaling to you his brand is positivity. He wants to curate a positive experience. If that's something that you're looking for, that's a great place for it. I've always been a person looking for a very positive hobby experience. That's the content that I click into. That's what I like. I want to be happy when I'm collecting cards. I want to feel like I'm progressing. I'm naturally a glass half full person. I gravitate to that. I get it. I think great advice was given there. Okay, here's phase 2 of the discussion, which I think we should progress to this phase now, perhaps for the purposes of this show. I think we have to extend understanding to the curmudgeons, or to the negative folks, which also has been done a bit to some extent here, as we sort of say, well, people can have legitimate grievances, or people can be rightfully pointing out things that need correction. But even if they're not, this is where I'm going to take it a step further. Even if they're just whining and moaning just to vent, and they're complaining about something and it's a misplaced anger, or that really it's not a problem in there, and they're still making it a stink about it. You have to remember that this particular niche combines 2 of the most emotional and, quite frankly, pessimistic types of experience in life. The first one is the financial component to this. People in financial markets, people in the financial industry, they're always stressed. It's a very high pressure job. There's a lot on the line. People get very anxious. Anytime you bring in a market or a financial component, there's going to be pessimism, there's going to be anxiety, there's going to be pressure, there's going to be lashing out. So we have to understand and expect that that's going to happen in our community. And the second part that combines with finance is sports. And who are more negative than sports fans? Spend an afternoon in the bleachers at an MLB game. Or how about, I remember the first Luka game I ever went to. I lived in LA at the time. It was a Clippers game. It was actually Dirk's send-off game. And the whole game, my entire section was just harassing him nonstop. Overrated. The chants just the whole time, just abusing this guy. Sports fandom is one of the great vessels for negativity. It's one of the great vessels to let out a little bit of masculine rage, if I may. So you combine the masculine rage with the pessimism and the anxiety of a financial market, and we would almost be foolish not to expect heaps of negativity and frustration and venting of these concepts, whether or not it's fair, whether it's not, or it's right or wrong, extending the understanding. Okay, and then part 3, phase 3 of this discussion, and this is the zag. We have to be really careful as curators of positive experiences that we don't hate on haters. Because if we end up hating on haters, or complaining about complainers, or criticizing critical people, we've actually just become one of them. So if our issue is that people are being negative, and that bothers us, and so then we come out and say something negative about negative people, we've actually just done the same thing that they've done. And so you have situations here where the frustration that, like, I know that I feel if I see somebody trashing my favorite player, or trashing a card that I love, the frustration I feel where I'm like, I don't like this. This is negative. I don't like it. I don't want to be exposed to it. Well, that frustration and tension that I feel when I see that, that person felt that same frustration and tension, but at a different thing. And that's what made them speak out in the first place. So the content changes. I'm negative about them being negative. They're negative about something else, but the type of emotion is the same. So a truly positive person is confined by the nature and the laws of positivity. We are confined to remain positive. even in the face of negativity. If we turn negative against negativity, we're just another chain in the negative link.
Lots there, and I do have some. I love the way so logical in your thinking and the way you lay things out. So here's some of my response, and then we'll hear from the other guys. So you mentioned sports fanaticism and financial market and how stressful that can be. So let's go another level, another layer ahead of that now, and say, okay, so the hobby and sports cards is sort of an evolution of being a sports fan. You're a sports fan, and then maybe you decide to add on and become even a bigger sports fan or a more participatory sports fan by buying sports cards and getting into the sports card hobby. So it should enhance your enjoyment of the sport, but because your players don't always perform well, especially the active players, you're now compounding the frustration you might have, and you need somewhere to lash out, and it might just be on social media. Well, that's where it is going to go. So we have that compounding effect. Not only did your team lose, but your collection might have gone down in value for the next week if it's a football game that you're watching. And then we talk about, or you talk about how stressful it can be to work in the financial markets world. And in any career, not say any, but in many careers for that matter, the hobby is supposed to be an escape from that. It should be an escape from your stressful day job. I mean, Josh is a lawyer. I know Josh doesn't love going to work every day, but he does. And then he's got the hobby to enjoy afterwards. So I understand that people are going to be upset, and there are real things to be upset about, and that they can do that. And they social media is the place to let it all out. And so those are my thoughts on those two kind of prongs on the fork there, Chris, in terms of being a sports fan and the stress that comes along with working in the financial markets or many careers. And then there's the becoming negative about being negative about negativity makes you negative as well. So that's where I understand what you're saying, but I think that yes, it's easy to get caught. And I've gone through this. I've gone through this myself. I've fallen for it before. I've taken the bait more than once, more than many times. I've taken the bait and become negative in response to other negativity, or because I'm negative about something myself, and because I feel like I have something that I want to say, but I try to do it productively, and I'm not perfect. I've probably done it in ways that weren't great before. And all I can do is try to learn and get better from that. And that's all any of us can really do. So instead of being negative about the negativity or the haters, I think for people who are being targeted, it's one thing if you're being targeted or if you're not being targeted. You can respond publicly to some negativity just because you want to provide the other side of it, and you might not be you can go all ad hominem on them too along the way, and kind of not stick to the facts, and that can be a bad look, and I'm sure I've done that as well. Or you can just not respond and just disengage and do all the things I said before: block, unfollow, those sorts of things. Which there are people that will say, "Oh, he blocked." I've seen people say, "Oh, he'll just block you if you say something that he doesn't like." I've blocked like 5 people.
You're a troll.
Yeah, right. I've blocked 5 people, and 2 of them have been unblocked. So in any event, yeah. It's a great. I like what you said, Chris, and I think that it's very inspiring for me personally in some ways. Not that I'm just gonna take in and consume trollish negativity or even negativity that just doesn't impact me. I think it inspires me just to disengage and not feed the trolls, not take the bait, that kind of thing. And the other thing, guys, and this is what I've really learned. The more time that we spend dealing with those things that aren't helping us be better, we are taking away from building something, from making our own content or working on our business or whatever, spending time with your family. Like, the more time you spend giving attention to things that are not productive is costing you in other areas of your life. Okay, that's it from me. Okay, I want to hear from Josh and Alex, but I also want Chris to respond to everything I just said. What do you want to do first? Who's on? Okay,
let Evan and Josh go.
Okay, go ahead, Evan. Why don't you go first?
I love Chris is like a philosopher there. I love the way that he put that together and everything.
Welcome to hour 3 of Sports Cards Live on Saturday night.
I sometimes I get tripped up on the word negativity. And I can see in the comments that there's a lot of debate about that too. There are bad things that are happening that need to be called out. People disagree. You can do all of those things. I think sports fans, as Chris said, you can have a little bit of a pessimistic attitude, or like to debate. Debate is one of the best things about sports. I think what the hobby could use more of is just people being respectful of each other. And you don't have to agree. You don't have to like things that everybody else says. You can call things out, but where you can do so with a little bit of respect to them and everything, I think goes a long way. But look, I mean, this is something that people spend their time and their money on, and I know everybody's passionate about it. And so I understand the fire, and I'd rather work in an industry that people are fired up about, right? Like that we have something here that's special. If you're getting that angry at it, then this is something that's worth working towards, building against, building within. I've worked a lot of jobs in my life, and some of them have been in spaces that there was no passion and nobody really cared whether or not something happened or whatever. And you had to fight really hard just to get people to pay attention. That's not an issue that we have here. But I will say, and I saw this question earlier on in the comments, somebody asked like how many people are collecting these days. I have no idea what the answer is, but I know that there are a lot of people out there who are sports fans that don't collect. And we have a huge opportunity to get more people into this space and to continue to grow the hobby. And I think that benefits all of us. Yes, that makes it harder to get cards and harder to maybe, get access to certain things. I understand that, but the healthier the hobby is, the better it is for collectors. And I think that when we are overly negative or not respectful of each other, it makes it hard for somebody to come in and say, I want to give that a chance. I want to check that out. And so, for us to grow as an industry, and for this hobby to continue to mature and get better, and for companies like Fanatics or whatnot or whomever to continue investing money to create product and create events and things like that, we need this to continue to grow. And I think that it's only going to happen if we are open to other people, if we're welcoming to other people, if we don't try to fight all the time. And if we're able to do that, more people will come in. And I think we're going to just see this hobby continue to grow in good ways.
Yeah, good stuff. Well said, Evan. Josh, let's hear your take.
You kind of mentioned it, touched on it already. A lot of people, this is a hobby, so it's supposed to be fun. I have enough stress during the day, so I don't really want to come on social media and get annoyed at what someone says. So I'm just gonna kind of let it roll off my back unless it's a certain doctor. Other than that, though, that happened to me a couple weeks ago. I got all fired up. I'm like, you know what? It's only cards. Take a deep breath. The phone down, just realize again, this is for enjoyment, not like to be a war. So I think if you look at it that way, that's how I deal with it, and to maintain my enjoyment in the hobby.
Okay, thank you. Good stuff. And Chris, back to you. Response to me and the other fellas.
Yeah, Jeremy, I thought you did a really nice job of taking what I said and sort of making it neater and cleaner and more applicable, more directly applicable, and turning it from something theoretical into something actionable, which is just, and I think that's what Dan was sort of getting at too. I saw you highlighted one of his comments. The key is not acknowledging the negativity, and yeah, there's something to that. The religious metaphor, and I think all religions have a metaphor for this, but one of them is to turn the other cheek. That's sort of to put it into one little catchphrase or a slogan. That's the idea here. And then here's an example, okay, sort of the sports, of the negativity of sports. Sports are very positive too. There's nothing like, I remember when I'm not even a huge baseball guy, but when the 2016 World Series, when the Cubs won, apologies, Josh, you got your 2005 White Sox World Series.
That's right. So
yeah, you got that. That already got shouted out today.
Yes.
But when the Cubs won the World Series in 2016, I watched that with my dad, with my brother. Like, we were all there watching that, and it was unforgettable. One of the great moments that we all spent together. I mean, sports can do that too. Sports can be that positive, that exhilarating, that exciting. Sports card collecting is so special that, you know, we'll take a week away from our lives in the middle of the summer rather than go on a vacation, rather than, you know, drag our families along to go to the National, just because it's so exhilarating and so exciting. So that's the flip side. That's the double-sided coin of this project, as Evan was, I think, pointing out quite well, which is that it's nice. There's a perspective that says it's nice when people are so passionate about this, and when you have passion, there's two sides to the coin of passion. Now, the thing that I thought of is, as Jeremy, as you were sort of talking about the actionability of this, of how do we as content creators or collectors or people just acting in this space navigate maybe the things are more directed at us, and I thought you gave great advice. I think another piece of advice that I try to practice is to actually listen, and to like, if somebody says something critical about me, to say, you know, it's easy for me to brush it off and say, well, you know, they just don't like me, but maybe there's actually something I did that was stupid that triggered it, and I could actually course correct if I just paid attention and listened to what they're saying. So I try to do that too. It's much easier said than done, and it's not always the case. Sometimes it is just trolling, so you have to have a really fine-tuned radar for that. But I think about LeBron James. I think about what Skip Bayless did to LeBron James, about how he turned hating that guy into a cottage industry, made a career off of it, and still to this day, I think the blueprint that he laid is giving permission and laying the groundwork for, you know, thousands, maybe millions of people to hate LeBron. And I'm not saying they're wrong to hate LeBron. I mean, maybe he rubs them the wrong way. Maybe they don't like something that he said that was arrogant or boastful. Maybe they don't like a political stance that he took. Maybe they just don't like the way he plays the game. I mean, there's plenty of reasons not to like him. But look at the amount of, I mean, if you just sort of had like a, you know how you have those instruments that measure the amount of rainfall? If you had one of those that measure the amount of hate that falls on LeBron James every day, you just collected it from all of social media and all the barbershop conversations, just everywhere that people are saying things, the meter would explode. You know, so negativity, man, is part and parcel of life. It happens, especially in the context of sports. And you know what? LeBron still goes out there and puts up 25 points, 10 rebounds, and 10 assists at 40 years old in the NBA. So if he can do that, I think we'll be all right too.
Yeah, that's a whole other level. Being like a Bieber or any of these mega stars, and the hate that they get for the product. Imagine being Nickelback. I mean, I saw a documentary about Nickelback, and that guy, bless him. I mean, Chad Kruger, I think his name is. Poor guy. I mean, that guy went through a tough time, and people don't care. Some people just love to hate. It's a sport for some people, but that's a whole other thing. I'm going to go to some comments now, guys. Okay. First of all, Michael H, we're doing great, I think. Speaking for myself, how are you? Welcome to the show. Okay. Mike Zier, who engaged with me on X on this comment, says, correct. If the way you have always collected has been turned upside down, I feel you can be upset a bit. I can't buy hobby boxes anymore. My wages haven't matched the increase. Yes, I can be. I think he's saying happy and sad. And yeah, that's going to be tough. The way you've collected always has been turned upside down. That's going to be tough. I still say to Mike Z or anybody else, then you either have to move on to find a different hobby because you can't afford this one. That's okay. Or you have to find a way to still hobby in the hobby. And maybe just because it's the way you've always done it, you might have to let go. You just might have to let go. And find something different. I used to always go to the movies to watch movies. Not that I can't, don't really do that anymore. Now I watch Netflix, found a different way. I know that's not a great analogy, but bear with me. I'm just saying things change in the world. That is the only constant. And try to adapt. And if you can't, then you truly have my empathy, 100%. I don't want to see anybody leave the hobby because they can't afford what they love to do, but it's bound to happen. Dan's Vintage says the key is to not acknowledge the negativity. Agreed. Jeff's card journey says you just have to retire. It is a sea of happiness and tranquility waiting for the mailman to deliver the card. Yeah, well said, Jeff. You just have to retire. Foul Ball says positivity is way overrated. You can't sugarcoat everything or ignore something negative. And to that, I think I agree with the second part of this comment. I agree that you can't sugarcoat everything or ignore something negative. 100%. However, to say positivity is overrated and then follow up, I think I don't agree with that, foul ball. I think I would have worded it and said respectful and professional sort of skepticism is underrated. That's okay. Being respectful in your counter arguments, in your critique, I think is fine. A lot of it comes down to tone and delivery. And even though it's hard sometimes to interpret the intended tone and delivery style by words on a screen or in a tweet or a post somewhere, there are ways, just like Mike Zier did, put a little smiley face. There are ways to emote in text. So I don't know, the positivity is way overrated. I think it's actually probably underrated because positivity can extend your life. But I do think that professional, respectful skepticism and critique is underrated. Or underutilized. I'll put it that way. Christina's PC says the glass is 100% full, 50% liquid, and the top half is filled with air. Good one. Mosaic Mind says if collectors buy and collect just to keep in PCs, there's no wrong way to do that. If collectors are buying as an investment, they take on the stress that comes with any investment market. That's true. Yeah, I think that I agree. And guys, take notes, make mental notes. We'll come back to all of you to respond to any of these comments as I run through them first. Yankees fan says, not sure why everyone has to judge everyone else. Let people collect what they want and how they want. It all makes the hobby go round. Yeah. Dan's Vintage says, every content creator gets some negative interaction, whether it's a negative comment, downvote, or someone says something negative about you. It happens. Truth. Ziggy No says, agree that sports cards enhance your sports fan experience and it is easier for a fan to emotionally spend money on something that they love. True. Yeah, I agree with that. He goes on to say, we lack debate and conflict resolution in the hobby. That's a whole topic right there. I think we could really spend time on. And then Yelia Williams says, easy for negativity to sneak into an otherwise positive hobby person when they begin to lose money. Yeah, no doubt. Okay, that's what I had for that run of comments. Chris, you're chuckling. Evan, Josh, who? Chris, you're off mute. We'll let you go first.
You see what victory just cracked. I read the chat.
Today, while listening to the crossover, I looked one of our donkeys directly in his face and said, sports cards is a lifestyle. He didn't respond, but I took his silence as him saying the hobby is alive. Well, and you know what? I don't listen when Victory Investments, that's Sean. When Sean says that he looked one of his donkeys directly in the face and said sports cards is a lifestyle, I actually believe him because he wrote the song and sings it at the beginning and end now of all these shows. So
and he owns donkeys. I believe that too.
And he owns he's out there in the ranch. So
he's out there, man.
Yeah. And check out his new book, everybody. His new children's book, Chasing Jackie Robinson. It's available on Amazon. My copy's up on my bookshelf right now, but I have it myself, so I can't just grab it and show you. But I've done that before. Check it out, guys. Like cheap too on Amazon. Okay. Evan, do you have any follow-ups from any of that stuff that we just went through?
I think listening to all this and seeing the comments come in, this gives me hope because it's Saturday night. We have a lot of people on who are talking about this hobby and giving their opinions and clearly passionate about it. And as I said earlier, like if you're going to start a business in a space, you want to start in a place that people really care. And this is the type of thing that always reminds me, it's sort of a shot in the arm. Say there are a lot of people on here who care, a lot more who are not here right now who care. And I think that's the thing that makes this hobby so special. And I'm excited. We're going to be, hopefully a lot of these people are going to be hanging out in Chicago in 3 weeks time. And there's no better place to see how much positivity there is in a hobby than watching people walk around at a show and talk to each other about the things they love. And that's kind of the thing that always gives me getting off of Twitter and Instagram for a little while and shaking hands and going up to tables and talking about this stuff is where to me, it always flips. And you're like, okay, there are a lot of people who love this stuff. They're here. And I think Chris said it, people who are spending their vacation, going to Rosemont, Illinois, to stay at a Hilton Garden Inn and spend all day in a convention center, and that's their vacation, and they love it. And I think that you don't find that in a lot of different communities and a lot of different hobbies. You find it here.
You used the word vacation a couple times. It's funny because as you were speaking, before you said it, I was going to say, like, we're going to the National. Like, that's the number one trip of the year for just about anyone who goes. Like, you'd rather go to the National than go to Europe with your significant other, or Hawaii, or wherever, even Disneyland with your kids, sort of thing. The National is where we want to go. Yeah. Okay. I'll leave it at that for when my kids might watch this show 25 years from now, because they're still pretty young. Josh, what about you based on the last 10 minutes or so?
Rosemont's not a bad place to spend a week. I live 15 minutes away. It's lovely. With respect to, hobby positivity and stuff, a healthy dose of skepticism is good in every area of life. I think there's nothing wrong with being skeptical. I'm skeptical by nature, unfortunately, but I think it also is, it's healthy. It's a safeguard against maybe going into things, I don't know what the word is, but it protects yourself. It's like it's a check. So I think that's important. But also, like Chris said, I come here to have fun and to enjoy myself and to enjoy my collection and enjoy other people's collections. So I like to follow people like Chris, like you, who are passionate about collecting and have cool cards to look at.
Yeah. It comes back to something we mentioned. Someone mentioned earlier, it might have come from the chat. No two people collect the same way. I don't think that it's like no two people have the same fingerprints. Like you're collecting genome and there's two people have the same genome. It's like collecting genome. I don't know. You can't even map a collector. I'm going to use this. I'm going to stick with this theme. You can't even map a collector's genome just by looking at their collection, because it doesn't tell you what they've had in the past, what they're, unless it does, I don't know, but I'm going to keep going with this. It doesn't tell you everything they've done, how their collection has evolved, but also how their mindset towards the hobby and collecting has evolved over time as well, and where it's going to go. There's no way to, there's so much variety. And, I always like to say, I'm just making a parallel here between, and we have parallels in the hobby too. I'm making a parallel between there's an infinite amount of conditions that a card can be in. It's not just 19 scores. And that's why, the grading scale is limiting. It's very helpful, but it's limiting. There's an infinite amount of ways that people can collect too. And it's really hard to categorize them because there are so many different approaches to it. And that's what keeps it so awesome. I believe so awesome.
Jeremy, I'd add, and this is not good English, I'll say that to start, but I look at the word collecting and I've tried to divorce the word collecting from ownership. I think that there's this assumption that to be a collector, you have to have the thing that you collect. And that's not always possible. You can't always afford it. Maybe you can't get it because there aren't that many of them, but you have a true appreciation for it and a love for it and a passion for it. And I think that really matters. And so I think that, as you said, you can't look at somebody's collection and see and sort of map them because of it, because you can't see all the things that they would love to buy if they had the ability or if they had the space or if they had the time. And I think that that's the thing that I always kind of come to is I'm never going to own the T206 that we talked about earlier. Like, that's just not, I don't believe that I have that in my future. I'm really passionate about the card. I'm really interested in it. I know a lot about it. There's so many things that I care about that I'll never own. And I think that the more we divorce sort of the word collecting from ownership and just talk about the appreciation we have for all of these things, the stories behind them, the way that they were put together, the people who are in them or are part of them, or the stories of how this thing ended up in the place it ended up. I think that's pretty powerful too.
I think you're kind of, to me, and I think that's such a great, I think you raised such a neat issue that I never really talk about it or even think about, but I think what you might be getting at is like, it's almost like being a connoisseur in a way, like you're not necessarily purchasing these things or owning them. I know a lot of guys who are, experts in all the highest end sports cars that the companies put out that are just one level down from being in F1 or whatever other, what circuits there are, NASCAR and that. Like, these guys can't afford to go buy a Lambo at all, but they know everything about them. They're super passionate about them, and no one's making fun of them or saying they shouldn't love it. They're a connoisseur of it because they just are interested. They love it. And I think that's fine. Like, you don't have to own the T206 Wagner to not appreciate it and want to study it and learn about it. I do have a suggestion though, which is you could still go buy and I have one on my shelf right there. I'm going to grab it really quick. I've got this on my shelf. I don't own the T206, but this is an artist rendition of a T206. So, you can have a painting on the wall. Like, I've got, 20 of them on the wall behind me. These aren't cards that I necessarily haven't owned or can't own, but I don't own all of them anymore. And there are other ways that you can enjoy that T206 Wagner, Evan, without it being the exact card itself.
I've got it on my mantle right there. I don't know if it shows up, but it's the reproduction from the mid 90s that I got for $10. But to me, it was more of something that I wanted to have an illustration of that card, what the card meant, but also that exact point that I'm trying to make. That imagine if the only people who could have an opinion about the T206 were people who owned it. It would be a pretty sad group chat of 20 people, 50 people, whatever that number is. And all of us have opinions about things. I've got opinions about, Hoj was saying, like LeBron. Like, I can't play basketball like LeBron, but I'm allowed to have an opinion about what he's like as a player. And so I think at the end of the day, this is really about the appreciation we have for these items, the appreciation we have for the hobby itself, the relationships that we make within the hobby. That's what's important. What you have, what you own, to me, is way less important. I care about what people, I care about what people care about. I don't care about what people own, because I know plenty of bozos, as I'm sure a lot of people here do, who own a lot of stuff because they got a lot of money, but they don't necessarily care about the thing in the same way, or they just bought it because they could. And they're like, hey, I can go buy this. Like last year, I'm walking around at Fanatics Fest and seeing some of the coolest cards I've ever seen from people who I don't know cared at all about the thing that they bought, other than this was their thing. Like, what's the most expensive, the biggest hype? I have the money, I'm going to go buy it. Like, that's a sad way to think about it. So for me, like, I care about the card or the item and the person that also cares about it, not the person who owns it at the end of the day.
Yeah. Awesome stuff, Evan. Iconic Baseball says, collecting is connecting. Oh, that's a good tagline, right? That's I got to write that one down. And then Michael H says, it's the great escape if there is one. Yeah, I think the hobby, for me it is. I think it is for many of us as well. Okay, Chris, you got something to jump in with? I think you do.
I think we all had vigorous nods of agreement when Evan said bozos.
You noticed that? That's funny. In a way, I feel like we should provide a little bit of clarity on that, Chris, if you don't mind.
Oh, I don't know. What do you mean by that exactly?
You know what I mean by that is that that word comes up a lot in a specific group that I participate in, and so when Evan said bozos, Josh, Chris, and I all I saw us all smiling big at the same time, because we see that word a lot on a certain platform, let's say. Yeah.
Well, the bozos is such a great word. It's a great concept. There are bozos in this hobby. I'm willing to be negative and say that. Here's something else I was thinking about. All right, just taking the negative person and analyzing the negative person in the hobby, just like I was just negative right there. One of the things, one of my character flaws, I mean, it's not a total flaw, but one of my flaws is that I'm very earnest, and I really want to say exactly what I mean. And there are so many people in this world and I learned this at a late age, naive, you might even say I am. I learned it at a late age that a lot of people don't put that much effort into trying to say exactly what they mean, or they intentionally say something a little bit different than what they mean because they're really trying to communicate in between the lines. And so at a certain point, when people are using language, sometimes they don't mean what they say. Sometimes they don't even care to make sure that what they say represents what they mean. And sometimes they're trying to say something that their words aren't saying. And so that once that game is exposed, that language game, then it becomes a task of trying to figure out what do they actually mean to say. And I think negative people can sometimes be saying negative things that aren't exactly what they mean, but there's something that they're getting at that is really true. And that if if we actually figured out what they're trying to say, we would probably feel the same way. So like, take for example, let's say somebody has a really negative opinion on the new Prism product, and they just fire off a tweet that says Prism sucks. And I love Prism, so I'm like, forget this guy, mute. But what if what the guy's really trying to say is that I just opened a box of Prism. I spent money that I've been saving for a few months to buy it, and I didn't even get an autograph card of a decent player. And so what I'm really trying to say is the box of this product that I opened disappointed me because I really, really like this product and I really tried to save up to buy it. And so what they're really saying is that I love this product, but the outcome that happened to me in this particular situation was terrible. And they just summarize that into a quick social media event that says Prism sucks. And that's not what they mean at all. They mean the opposite. They mean I like Prism so much and it really disappointed me and it let me down. And there is something very strategic actually about an approach to life that says despise the thing that you cannot have, hate the thing that you cannot have. And so, you know, if I know that this card that I really want in Prism, I'm never going to be able to get, too expensive, too difficult to pull or whatever, it can be strategic. It can be a coping mechanism for me to say, I don't want it. I hate it. I don't like it, period. So there's something, there's a lot of unpacking to do around negative topics. And then the other thing, a lot of negativity, a lot of it is just to make a joke. And that can really get lost in social media where we don't have the sarcasm font. We don't really know what's being said. A lot of negativity is just put out there to get some laughs. Forget whoever it might offend or hurt or upset and whatever the collateral damage might be. It's really just thrown out there to get some laughs, and that's it. And I'm guilty of that. I think it happens sometimes.
For sure it does. You know, you started off by saying people don't often say what they mean. Either they can't articulate it or they just don't articulate it correctly or properly. How about this one though, Chris? People don't often, when you do speak and say what you mean and you articulate exactly what you want to say, people often just pick a little section of it and take that as the clear intention of the post. They take it out of context, or they don't read what you say when you really do say what you mean. So, you know, communication breakdown is a real thing. It's really hard, especially when we also have I don't know, maybe it's not the human condition of projecting is so powerful and so prevalent that it really blurs people's view and not ability. I think just to the degree that they actually strive to understand the intention of what someone is saying. It happened earlier tonight with someone in the chat and something Evan said. You know, Evan didn't have he said something, but it wasn't his complete thought on the whole topic. He then had the opportunity to fill that out, and it addressed what somebody made, an assumption that somebody made. And I'm not holding that against Evan, of course, or the person in the chat. That's just the way this whole game of social media and communication and content creation works. So I do have a couple of starred comments here. Michael Rader said, to me, the hobby is extremely positive as long as you collect what you like and watch the channels that you like. Yeah, curation, 100%. Ali says, I'm really enjoying the show today. I have a question. I love seeing everyone's display. I just purchased wall displays for my cards, but I have noticed some faint sunlight hits the wall hang. Or hits the wall. So hang it or don't hang it. Someone had said no sun ever. I will say one thing. Like I do have cards on display and sun hits them, but these are not cards that are going to either be ruined or that have any value that if it comes down, I'm going to be concerned with. So I would not like, you know, a card that is all or mostly memorabilia, like a modern card that's mostly memorabilia. Like I have a bunch in, I don't know if you can, yeah, right there in this little cabinet right here. These are all memorabilia. These cards on the wall here, they don't get much sun, but there's no autographs on them. Most of them are like foil kind of prismy refractor type of things, they're not going to get damaged by the sun. So my recommendation is autos, light cards, like a light white, like an SP Authentic. Think about the Tom Brady SP Authentic rookie card. You put that in light, it's going to yellow over time. That card will yellow, guaranteed. Speaking of yellowing cards, Duncan Go Nuts. A lot of acetate cards will yellow over time. So yeah, no sunlight unless you just don't worry too much about the value.
I would say though, Jeremy, I 100% agree, but I would try to find a place that you can display those cards that doesn't get sunlight, because it's sad when things that you love are in a box and you never get to see them. I just think we have these things. Let's touch them. Let's hold them. Let's put them on our walls as much as we can. Because that's the joy of them, and they don't give you nearly as much joy if they're locked away and you never look at them. So there's got to be a place in your room, in your house that doesn't get sunlight, and put them there.
Yeah, I was just going to add and say, if you have that place, do it. If you don't, then you have a tough decision to make at some time. Maybe only certain cards from your collection get into the showcase. And then that brings up a whole other topic, which we're not going to get into tonight because we've passed the 3-hour mark now for the show, which is the whole concept of vaulting, or even vaulting in your own safety deposit box at your own branch, of your own bank branch, your local branch. That is vaulting too. Yeah. Is that something you want to do as well? So yeah. Okay. Guys, I think we're gonna wrap this up. With that, I'd like to ask you guys if there's any final comments from the panel. Evan, we just heard yours. Anything else you were thinking of, you want to mention, or responses to anything else we've talked about?
No, this was a lot of fun. I really appreciate, Jeremy, you having me on and giving me the platform to talk about something that I know is new, and hope that people kind of understand what we're trying to do with Mantel and give us a shot. And if you don't like it, then all good. But we're really hoping we can build something cool for the hobby. But this was a lot of fun, and I appreciate the time and the conversation. I can do this all day talking cards. Like, there's not much better.
It is a lot of fun, and I am on Mantel. I've been on there for a while, and have following some people, have some followers. I have do some posting here and there. So I always think, I should go spend more time there. So I will endeavor to do that. Evan, I want to support you. I like you. I like what you're doing. I think you're doing it for the right reasons. So that's great. You're doing it for the hobby, it seems. And obviously everything that's a business has to have a return, but it seems like the guys who started this with you care about collecting. So that's important. Anyway, I hope you do get a few new people signing up after meeting you here tonight.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Josh, let's go to Chris first. And then we'll go to you, Josh, just to say goodnight even.
Great show. Great to be a part of it. Always grateful to be a part of it. And looking forward to, is there a show next week?
Next week is Hobby Palooza. Yes, there is a show next week. So we'll be here. You, me, Leighton will come on. We'll get Josh to come back. And we're going to bring on Maddie C., who has just launched his Eye Appeal Inc. Service. It's not a paid for, it's just a platform I don't know if it's public yet, but it's launched to like the beta users, of which I am one. So I am on there helping him build it out or whatever, and check it out and report some issues or whatever. But he'll be on, and we'll be talking about Eye Appeal Inc. and the whole concept of Eye Appeal next week. That'll be fun, actually. So thanks for pointing that out. I want to also remind everybody, Hobby Palooza is on the 4 Collectors Network on YouTube. The number 4, the word collectors, next Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And the Sports Cards Live, everyone, like all the different participants, get 1 hour to stream their show. So I'll have my regular time slot. I'm the last one on Saturday, or Sports Cards Live is the last slot on Saturday. So we're going to go for more than an hour, obviously, but that is next weekend. So check that out. These are also the same guys that are hosting the Vintage Trade Night at the National, which is on Saturday night in the Trade Night venue. Josh, before you even go, I want to say thank you for riding shotgun with me all night tonight.
I love doing this. It's like one of the highlights of the hobby experience for me. It's a lot of fun. Get to meet people like Evan and Gordy, which was unbelievable. And, Mr. Hoge is, what can you say? He's peerless. So that was fun. I am super excited.
That can mean a few different things. The peerless.
I mean it only in the most positive way.
Sure. I believe you.
Thank you. I am really excited about the National. Cannot wait. Got 2 weeks, and I'm going to see you guys. I'm very excited, and I haven't bought to talk about positivity and collecting experiences. I haven't bought a card at the National in like maybe 5 years. I go for like seeing everybody, and that's more fun to me is collecting friends as opposed to cards. I mean, I'll probably buy something on some auction the week after, but yeah, no. If there's a Bronco Nagurski Chickle, I'll probably have to call Fund Your Cards and work something out. But I'm super excited.
Same here. Can't wait to get there. See everybody on this screen will be there, along with several from the chat. So looking forward to that. Thank you again, Josh, for joining us here tonight. Back to the display. Ziggy does make, I think this is a good suggestion. Take a photo and display in an LCD frame all over the house in tune with music playlists. Pictures of your cards, or that could be something too. Mosaic Mind says, great discussion. Good night, Yelio Williams. Appreciate that. Ziggy's going to visit Mantel as well. Yankees fan says, good luck, Evan. And another great show. Eric Young, fun show. Always great content. Thank you very much for that, Eric. Mosaic Mind, good night to you. And good stuff. All right, guys. With that, here on July the 12th, 2025, this episode of Sports Cards Live is now over. Evan, you want to play?
Over.
And good night, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in and being a part of the Sports Cards Live community. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and most of all, keep collecting. More great content to come. Sports Cards is a lifestyle.